I became a planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Gift from Nature. Irreplaceable? Guo Sen was suddenly very interested in the words these primitive people said. Generally speaking, this is about the necessities of life, right? And they also said words like rich harvest. It seems that it should be food or minerals. Guo Sen did not think that they had already had the consciousness of owning luxury goods, but if it was really something special, then in this primitive era, the irreplaceable was really a luxury. He looked at the turtle dragon. This huge dinosaur creature with a majestic and terrifying face was called Lap by these primitive people, and it was also the navigation tool they used to travel from the island to here. Guo Sen had guessed that this might be the location of the primitive people's tribe. But after a careful search around here, whether in the forests and sparse grasslands on the plains, or in the various caves that may exist near the hills, or even in the holes between the soil underground, he did not find any traces of their tribe. It seems that this is really just a place for these primitive humans to hunt or collect certain necessities. But what exactly is this irreplaceable thing they are talking about? It was between spring and summer. The vast expanse of snow covering the land gradually turned into a precious source of water to nourish the land as the temperature continued to rise. On the soft land, countless short plants absorbed the water and emerged from the originally barren land, gradually forming a piece, a group, and all over the mountains. And under the warm light of the stars, they bloomed in red, blue, yellow, and pink flowers. Clusters of flowers are blooming. Looking closely, there are countless strange-looking insects flying among the flowers, making it very lively. The hundreds of primitive people walking in this sea of flowers seemed to be a ball of ink that destroyed this beautiful scenery. They stepped carelessly on the knee-high flowers without any thought of appreciating them. They walked deeper into the land along a rushing stream, holding the crudely made trident in their hands, constantly using it to scatter the flowers and plants on the roadside and open up a path. The stream meandered, washing the rocks in the shallow water, making a deafening sound. On the other side, the deep forest was filled with roars of beasts and clear bird calls. The primitive people walked for a while, crossed the stream at a bend, and entered the forest. Guo Sen looked down at the not so large forest, watching the primitive people quickly come out from the other end and come to a vast grassland. The slow-flowing river network divided the plain into countless pieces, and a strange-looking plant also caught Guo Sen's attention. It was a vine-like plant that grew on the ground. It had small white flowers, and grew on the most fertile soil by the river, even driving the weeds and those unknown small flowers aside. Guo Sen looked down at the grassland, and found that the white flowers had occupied almost all the land on the river bank, and became the master of this piece. And the purpose of the primitive people seemed to be these domineering plants. After a long journey, they finally came to these plants and stopped. The faces of the primitive people were filled with unimaginable excitement. My tribe. This is a gift from God. This is a gift from the God of harvest. It is a sign of our tribe's prosperity. Harvest. Harvest. The rough roar of the primitive people floated over the grassland with uncontrollable wild excitement. Guo Sen understood that the so-called irreplaceable thing they seemed to be looking for was indeed this plant. However, what was so good about this thing? The plant with small white flowers and green curved vines did not seem to show any irreplaceable characteristics. However, when he saw the primitive people excitedly pushing the tridents away from the leaves and vines of the plants and piercing into the soft soil, he suddenly understood something. The leader of the primitive people pushed the soil away with his rough hands, grabbed the roots of the plants, and pulled them upwards. After he fell on his butt, he also had a bunch of purple tubers in his hands. Legru. The leader stood up again, and raised the tubers above his head. Legru, Legru. The primitive people also raised their arms and cheered. Legru. Guo Sen looked at the potato-like tuber plant, which was purple-red in color, and really didn't know how to complain. Is this the irreplaceable thing they are looking for? There is nothing special about it. He watched the primitive people enthusiastically harvesting a large amount of legru from the vast land on the riverbank, and didn't understand what else this root could do besides eating it. The large white animal skin bag behind the primitive people was gradually filled with these tubers, and their mouths were almost grinning behind their ears. However, unexpectedly, it seemed that not every one of the primitive people wanted to put legru in the animal skin bag. Guo Sen saw that nearly 20 people did not join the harvesting team, but hurriedly helped them squeeze more tubers into the bag that could no longer fit anything. No, do these people have cat biscuits? You have come here with so much hardship, but you want to be lazy and not put these irreplaceable things in your animal skin bag? What are you doing? The primitive people did not seem to expect that there would be so much legru this time. Even if they filled their animal skin bags, they only harvested a small part of the amount on the riverbank. Guo Sen looked at the guys with empty hands and suddenly found that they returned to the forest again. What are they going to do? Guo Sen followed these guys closely and suddenly found that they were holding tridents and seemed to be driving something away. It seemed to be the small insects that I had seen in the Sea of Flowers. These things seemed to be somewhat similar to bees on Earth, but they were larger in size, and the compound eyes almost covered the entire head. The 4 pairs of wings flying up and down made a huge vibration sound. The primitive people kept using tridents to drive away these insects, and each took out a few small fruits from their animal skins. They crushed the fruits and applied them on their faces, arms, and legs. The insects that were originally surrounding them suddenly fled like crazy, as if they were hit. Guo Sen knew that this must be the method that the primitive people found to prevent being attacked by such insects. However, why are there so many flying insects around here? It is obviously quite far away from the Sea of Flowers. However, after searching the area carefully, he saw a huge spherical object that was almost the size of a truck head. After discovering more flying insects flying nearby, he understood the purpose of the primitive people. Chapter 102 Returning by the original route. Honey, this word itself easily reminds people of the sweet and mellow, pure and sweet sticky supreme delicacy. Guo Sen's memory of this delicious thing still lingers on the light amber drink with floral fragrance dripped into a cup of warm water. And after seeing this huge spindle-shaped insect nest on his sphere, his first thought about it was whether there was honey in it. After all, these flying insects really have a lot of similarities with the buzzing insects on the earth, bees. They also like to fly among the flowers, and they also have nests hanging high. However, this group of insects does not seem to be as gentle as bees. Even if they are hundreds of meters away from their nests, they will defend their territory to the death and intimidate all creatures that approach. They have encountered opponents, or in other words, natural enemies. The sloppy primitive people, waving tridents, with their bodies and faces covered with fruits that emit a strong smell, easily drove away the ferocious little bugs, and kept moving forward, approaching the insect nest. It didn't take too long. After the black cloud of little bugs gathered together, they still couldn't drive the primitive people away. They couldn't stand the smell of the crushed fruits, so they could only fly around and dance wildly, but didn't dare to approach. They kept retreating, which also alarmed their peers near the insect nest. There were hundreds of thousands of them, but they were helpless against the more than 20 primitive people. The constant vibration of the wings also became extremely chaotic. The primitive people found that their clothes, animal skins and weapons were all covered with a thick layer of bugs. They didn't want to drive them away, and they didn't need to drive them away. As long as they applied the juice of the fruit on their skin, these bugs could not launch any attack. As they got closer and closer to the insect nest, the primitive people took off the animal skin bags that had been used to trap the insects, and sprinkled some of the fruit juice on them. In an instant, all the insects fled from here. They marched forward in the black cloud of insects and soon reached their destination. Like an efficient human-shaped insect repellent, after these primitive people came into contact with the insect nest, the insects flying around the nest and nearby immediately fled. Seeing this, they placed the animal skin bags on the bottom edge of the insect nest, took out their tridents, and poked countless holes in it. A light white sticky substance soon flowed out of these holes slowly, and ripped into the animal skin bags that had been prepared long ago. There was no doubt that it was something extremely sweet similar to honey. The smiles on the faces of the primitive people at this time were extremely crazy. Guo Sen had never seen such a cramp-like laughter on the faces of intelligent life on the sphere. But he could understand it. After all, after the huge animal skin bags they brought were filled, there was still an unknown amount of insect honey left from the insect nests, forming a honey pond on the ground, and the depth was so deep that it had already submerged the ankles of the primitive people. Even so, the primitive people could not take more away. They could not help but catch the honey with their mouths and taste the sweet gift from nature. This honey carnival did not last too long. After the primitive people put the heavy animal skin bags on their backs, they immediately walked in the direction they came from. After all, other tribesmen were still waiting for their return. The sticky insect honey stuck to the feet of the primitive people, and they stuck to more dead branches and rotten leaves in the forest, making a pair of heavy shoes for the primitive people, dragging their steps. However, Guo Sen always felt that these primitive people were much faster than when they came. It didn't take them too long to return to the stream and soak their feet in the water. After being washed by the rushing stream, the leaves and the sticky insect honey disappeared. Chief. This time Bart has also been blessed by God. When a primitive man who was collecting honey saw the chief, the extremely excited expression on his face did not disappear. However, the wild laughter of the honey collector soon infected everyone, including the chief. My tribe. This is a gift from God. This is a gift from the god of harvest. The chief raised his trident high and roared loudly. Although he could not keep his balance normally, because of the animal skin bag full of tubers on his back, he still couldn't suppress his excitement, and even his shaggy and thick beard couldn't help flying. Thank you for the gift from the god of harvest. The rough voices of the primitive people roared again on this grassland, but it seemed more powerful and joyful than before. After getting the purple tuber called Legru and the insect honey called Bart, the primitive people did not continue to stay here, but returned non-stop. Just from the pace, you can feel their eagerness. However, Guo Sen still didn't understand why these two things were called irreplaceable by them. This insect honey is generally understandable. After all, it is really a gift from nature. But what the hell is that purple red root plant? If that thing tastes like potatoes, taro and yam, then it's nothing, right? Guo Sen felt that in this era of primitive civilization, the taste of barbecue should be much better than eating these root plants. After all, apart from salt, the creatures of the world have not discovered a second seasoning. Moreover, I haven't seen these primitive people have the technology to get salt. If they really don't have it, you can imagine their miserable look when they eat root plants that will make their mouths sticky, even if they are cooked, or even choke people to death. Guo Sen watched these primitive people move forward, crossing the stream, passing through the forest, and passing through the sea of flowers. Their faces were always filled with happiness and joy. Looking at the big river again, as if they had already anticipated the return of the primitive people, all the turtle dragons put their tails on the shore and waited eagerly. Guo Sen noticed that these guys seemed much more excited than before. The long snake-like necks swayed constantly and even kept making poo-yee sounds. The primitive people soon came to their side and climbed onto their backs along their tails. The turtle dragons' necks collectively twisted towards the primitive people who were carrying the animal skin bag of insect honey, and the calls began to become more frequent. Do they like this insect honey? Could it be that the primitive people collected insect honey in order to have a good relationship with the turtle dragons? The primitive people took out the black balls that Guo Sen had seen before from their animal skins and threw them to the turtle dragons. However, he also noticed that the number of black balls this time was much larger than before. The turtle dragons left their fascination with the insect honey and started to fight for the black balls again. After eating and drinking, they began to swing their forefins again, carrying the primitive people and swimming towards the archipelago. Chapter 103 Important Seasoning. Additional update. The sea breeze blew and the waves rolled. The turtle dragon army, loaded with primitive people and harvests, gradually left the river and came to the delta. They did not stop here, but continued to swim into the ocean. The huge turtle dragons stretched their necks, and their forefins swung back and forth. On their tortoise shell-like and uneven backs, there were rough primitive people loaded with harvests. 70 or 80 turtle dragons formed a square team, which was mighty. They were blue all over and looked like a huge blue ship from a distance. In this ancient time, there was no existence that dared to provoke. Guo Sen also dived into the sea. There were no ancient giant rockfish living here at the junction of the cold temperate zone, and there were no powerful carnivorous creatures. Even if there were, Guo Sen felt that they might not be able to beat the army of turtle dragons with sharp teeth and abnormally large size. It can be said that, apart from the black balls that the primitive people took out of their animal skins, there was basically nothing in this vast area that could subdue them. The primitive people on the turtle dragons were very excited at this time, but they were very quiet. They carefully held the animal skin bags full of harvests, fearing that the things inside would be affected by the turbulent waves and spill out. However, I don't know if it was intentional. Guo Sen found that the mounts of the primitive people holding the insect honey seemed to be particularly bumpy, even though the waves were not actually too big. From time to time, some of the insect honey in the animal skin bags would be spilled out, flowing along the outer periphery of the bags onto the turtle dragon's tortoise shell, and when the turtle dragons saw this happen, they collectively poo-yee and seemed particularly excited. In order not to waste this extremely rare delicacy, the primitive people kept dipping their fingers into the insect honey on the tortoise shell and sending it to their mouths, as if they didn't want to waste it at all. Of course, this also made the fellow tribesmen who could only hold the purple red tubers envious. Not long after, the turtle dragons sent the primitive people back to the bay on the shore of the island with huge rocks. After resting their tails on the shore, they watched the primitive people put on their animal skins and slowly walked onto the land. However, when the primitive people got on the shore, these blue guys started to make a fuss again. They looked for their companions with insect honey flowing on their backs and started a new round of competition. The primitive people seemed to be accustomed to this scene. They did not stop here to stay, but stepped on the dark rocks and moved deeper into the huge island. Guo Sen guessed that those black balls might contain the insect honey that these turtle dragons like. It must be said that it was a miracle that the primitive people used that kind of thing to tame this huge creature. Guo Sen's eyes followed them and passed through the dense forest area. After a while, they finally arrived in front of a small hill before dusk. At the foot of the mountain, surrounded by layers of wooden fences, a strange building made Guo Sen surprised. It was a group of dozens of simple houses made of animal skins and wood, connected to each other, extending into a huge building complex of nearly 100 meters in length. Guo Sen had never seen such a building before. In his impression, no tribe he had seen on the sphere before had connected houses like this to form a whole. Curiosity made him observe carefully. This entire group of buildings was made up of layers of beams cut into wooden boards, which were stacked on top of each other, and these wooden boards were glued together with mud and straw ropes, which seemed extremely stable. The animal skins on the roof were stacked one after another, covering the roof of the entire building tightly, and on top of it, a lot of heavy looking wooden stakes were pressed to fix it. In this way, even if there was a strong wind or heavy rain, it would be guaranteed not to be destroyed. However, perhaps to prevent collapse, although these houses were connected together, they were separated into single rooms by walls made of wooden stakes. In these single rooms, primitive people kept coming in and out. With the back against the solid rock hill behind them, they don't have to worry about the strong wind blowing from behind. There is also a natural barrier, so they only need to defend the other three directions. Guo Sen looked at the central part of the entire building. Unlike other rooms, the space here seems unusually large, with countless dried meat, dried purple red tubers called legru, and countless pottery jars. Before, he had never seen a tribe with so many pottery jars. These nearly 3,000 or 4,000 pottery jars were covered with animal skins, and he didn't know what was inside. However, he guessed that these might be the insect honey. Honey, as the second seasoning discovered on the planet, also has a very important position in this huge tribe. On Guo Sen's sphere, this group of primitive people have found food that is completely different from other races. However, how will they use this insect honey? Spread it on meat and bake it? Or spread it on the tubers, called legru, and eat it? But no matter how you think about it, it should be used for seasoning. Guo Sen watched the primitive people who returned from the land pour the piles of legru from the animal skin bags onto the ground, forming a large hill. Other female primitive people in the tribe also came in, holding the empty pottery jars that Guo Sen had just seen. These female primitive people worked in groups, slowly poured the sticky insect honey into the pottery jars, covered them completely with animal skins, and then piled them together. After doing this, the primitive people collectively came out of the warehouse and walked towards the already lit fire. The red light of the star illuminated the west like a flame, and after a while, it completely disappeared. Night fell. There seemed to be quite a lot of children in this tribe, and they were all jumping and playing around the fire, which was very lively. Guo Sen looked at the dark crowd sitting around the fire, and after a quick count, he found that there were nearly 2,000 people here. Such a large population seemed unimaginable. After all, this place is completely different from the races in the habitable zone that we have seen before. The climate is much worse and the food is not so abundant. When he followed the primitive people to this tribe just now, he did not see any fruit trees full of fruits, and even various animals were extremely rare. What do these 2,000 people eat? It can't be legru? No, legru grows far away from here. If it is used as food, the quantity is too scarce. Before confirming the population, Guo Sen really thought that they would eat this kind of root, but after seeing the total number of people, he felt that this was very unrealistic. After all, how many people can eat a total of only a few hundred kilograms of things? However, at this moment, Guo Sen suddenly heard the cheers of the primitive people. He saw that a black crowd of hundreds of people suddenly appeared on the outskirts of the tribe. After Guo Sen saw what they were carrying on their shoulders, he suddenly realized. So, you eat this. To be honest, today's subscription is really not ideal. Don't say 500, hahaha, it feels like a black history. But after thinking about it, I decided to release this chapter. After all, there are many readers waiting for it, and we can't keep it secret forever. Thanks to the book friend, required textbook, for the 7,000 Kidian coins reward. Thanks to the book friends, and, mastering the fate of M, for the 500 Kidian coins reward. Thanks to the book friends, Qua, and, 201705081011244650, for the 100 Kidian coins reward. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 104 Dizziness. The primitive people who came from afar and returned to the tribe unloaded their burdens and lay down beside the campfire. However, from the smiles on their faces and the excited roars of the people in the tribe, it can be seen that the prey they caught far exceeded expectations. Under their feet was a huge harvest that exuded the breath of the ocean. The creature, which was bluish white in color and had delicate scales on its body, had a pair of fist-sized eyes. In front of its big mouth, something like a saw protruded, which looked very strange. Guo Sen looked at these big fish that had been gutted and cleaned up and understood what this race usually feeds on. He noticed that there were many round holes on these big fish, and the blood had dried up. Looking at the trident in the hands of the primitive people, he realized that this thing actually served as a harpoon when fishing. The women in the tribe gathered together, holding extremely sharp metal short blades in their hands. It seemed that the next step would be completed by them. The short blades touched the skin of these strange looking big fishes and quickly scraped off the delicate scales. Then, some children ran over and followed suit. The sharp short blades skillfully scratched the fish horizontally and vertically, and the tender fish meat gradually peeled off the bones. The children put the fish meat on some trays made of tree bark. Not long after, all the fish meat was cut, strung with thin metal sticks, and smeared with white crystalline powder that was definitely salt. Then, countless skewers of fish meat were placed by the campfire and roasted. Guo Sen noticed that some primitive people left the fire and then walked into the warehouse. They ran straight to the pottery jars, picked them up one by one, and returned to the original place. What is this for? Roast first and then dip in insect honey? How is this eaten? However, Guo Sen also saw that the primitive people took out a large number of pottery bowls from a corner of the warehouse. Bowls. Wouldn't they eat skewers while drinking insect honey? This is even more flavorful, isn't it? Guo Sen didn't expect that this race was actually a heavy lover of insect honey. They used a bowl to scoop it up. I guess the tooth won't get better, right? Guo Sen was deeply worried about these primitive people. He watched those guys holding the pottery bowls one after another and distributing them to all the adults in the tribe. Not to the children? Is insect honey okay? A little bit is fine, right? Unexpectedly, these primitive people were quite harsh on their offspring. Those holding the pottery jars came to the crowd and peeled off the animal skins on the pottery jars. A dark purple liquid with some foam soon flowed into the bowls held by those primitive people. No, this doesn't seem to be the insect honey. Guo Sen zoomed in and looked carefully at those things with a lot of foam. In any case, it couldn't be the insect honey they had taken back before. If it wasn't insect honey, what else could it be? But immediately afterwards, the primitive man holding another jar poured golden and sticky insect honey into this strange water. Guo Sen was getting more and more confused. What on earth was this? If you pour honey into the water, wait, is it a drink? Guo Sen remembered something he had drunk many times before. Oh wow. These primitive people are awesome. They have made a drink? Guo Sen looked at the drink with white foam and some insect honey and suddenly had a guess. This thing is also purple red. Could it be a drink made from the purple red tuber called legru? With this guess, Guo Sen turned his sight to the warehouse. With a thought, he uncovered all the animal skins covering the pottery jars and let the things inside float in the air as if in a vacuum. Most of it was this purple red liquid. He looked at the pile of legru on the ground, thought about it, and controlled some of them, and then squeezed them with telekinesis. Telekinesis was like a juicer, squeezing out the light purple juice like spring water from the tubers. Guo Sen controlled the juice and made some comparisons with those in the jars. That's not right. Compared to the raw juice, the one in the jar seems to be softer and darker in color. He always thought that the purple red drink that the primitive people drank was squeezed directly from legru, but it seems not right now. Could it be that the one in the jar was actually brewed? Brewing. This is a process of natural fermentation after adding special microorganisms to grains or fruits as raw materials. The emergence of brewing is something that only appeared after the productivity of civilization has been improved to a certain level. The emergence of this technology means that this primitive civilization has entered a new situation. However, this is just a guess. Guo Sen really wants things to be as he expected, that the primitive people have mastered the brewing technology, but he still needs to observe and confirm it carefully. This tribe of primitive people has mastered a very strange civilization. If they can brew, then it can be said that they are already a long way ahead of other civilizations on the sphere. Turning his eyes back to the outside, the primitive people are still drinking the drink in big gulps and chewing the skewers of meat in their mouths. Sure enough, barbecue is the highest common pursuit of all intelligent life forms. However, after seeing some primitive people tilt their heads and faint while drinking, and a considerable number of people's faces turning from white to red, Guo Sen also confirmed at the same time that the drink was wine. Wine. God's presence? Guo Sen hasn't tried this ability for a long time. The last time seemed to be a female dwarf. That time, he almost lost face in order to taste the fruit. But this time, it seems to be to taste something new. No matter. Guo Sen's mind moved. His spirit immediately boarded a dwarf who was about to put the wine in his mouth. Damn. What the hell is this? Exclamation mark. Guo Sen immediately felt a strange smell of fishy, bitter and sweet, and sprayed the thing out directly. Puff. A drunk primitive next door was unlucky. The man was sprayed all over his head and face, glared at the one Guo Sen's presence, and raised his huge fist. This is indeed wine. No wonder these primitive people called it irreplaceable. Guo Sen could feel the strong dizziness brought by the alcohol. In order to relieve this feeling, he quickly lifted the divine presence. However, the dizziness still tortured his spirit. Guo Sen did not look at the fight caused by his divine presence just now, but raised his eyes and shifted them to the vast space to look at the vast stars. Thank you very much for your subscription. To be honest, I'm flattered. The first order has improved so much compared to the original one, which is really unexpected. However, if I want to go to the next level, I need to make more efforts. I don't have any talent in writing. I just want to gain more recognition from readers through hard work and diligence. However, the hardships and difficulties on this road are all things that I need to face. I hope that all readers can see everything they want to see in this novel. As an author, all I can do is make this story more exciting. Thank you again. Chapter 105 Pure Land. After shifting his gaze for a while, Guo Sen finally recovered a little. The strong feeling brought by the dizziness made him a little uncomfortable. Although he is now the will of a planet, and should not have such a wonderful feeling, after the arrival of God, he occupied the body of primitive intelligent life, and felt all kinds of experiences as a human being. Guo Sen didn't know whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. However, for quite a long time, he really didn't want to experience any God's arrival again. Turning his sight back to the tribe of primitive people, Guo Sen found that they called their drunk companions again, surrounded countless fires, shouted excitedly, and jumped up with their shoulders hooked on each other's backs. Wow. The shouting of these primitive people was not chaotic, but quite rhythmic, with the tone neither rising or falling, which was not bad. And their jumping also followed a certain pattern, coordinated with the shouting, and became more orderly. Could this be the most primitive song and dance? Guo Sen couldn't help but think so. This is another new discovery. Compared with the intelligent life forms they had met before, this race seemed to be much more advanced in enjoyment or leisure and entertainment. Whether it was the brewed wine, singing or dancing, it proved this point. However, Guo Sen wanted them to develop in other places, such as, he looked at the fish bones piled high in the primitive tribe, the molten metal in the blast furnace, their exquisitely crafted pottery jars, the sturdy and leak-proof animal skin bags used to hold various things, the brewed wine, and the weapons that were like tridents and had many uses, as well as the turtle dragons they had ridden. Suddenly he realized that everything they could develop seemed to have been developed very well. Perhaps, if Nalagru was introduced from the land to this island for planting, it would be even more perfect. This race has already made their own civilization ahead of other civilizations on this planet for a long time. Even the birdmen may only be a little better than them in weapon manufacturing and fighting. What are the things that restrict the development of this race now? Guo Sen raised his sight and looked down at the vast island. There are towering mountains, turbulent rivers, vast forests, lush grasslands, and the most widespread is indeed a swamp full of mud. However, these do not seem to have much impact on these primitive people. They can take the trident and go to the offshore with abundant fish resources to obtain a considerable amount of food, or they can ride the turtle dragon to the not so distant continent to collect legru and honey as materials for brewing. They have food and drink, and even enjoyment. What else do they lack? Guo Sen had also discovered that the proportion of children in this tribe was not small, and perhaps in the near future, the number of people in this tribe would increase sharply. Compared with the various intelligent creatures he had seen before, this group of primitive people had perfect conditions. He could also imagine that in the future, after they developed civilization to a higher stage, they would become a very powerful force. The big white dumplings gradually rose to the highest point of the night sky, reflecting the light from the stars, and letting the white light like gauze pour into the tribe that had gradually become quiet. The primitive people had extinguished most of the fires and lay down in the buildings that were connected in a row. The snoring made the originally quiet night a little noisy again. Guo Sen did not want to disperse this tribe that had just taken on a powerful embryonic form to this island, or even to various places in this land, located in the extreme south, as he did to the Birdman tribe before. These primitive people only learned to enjoy and entertain themselves when they had no worries about food. In terms of fighting, Guo Sen had not seen any performance from them. Moreover, Guo Sen did not think that these primitive people could independently establish more tribes on the island. Although there were not so many animals on this island, it was still a small matter to deal with primitive people who were alone, just a matter of adding a midnight snack at night. Guo Sen thought about it and decided to add something to the lives of these primitive people. He used his mind to easily turn over the soil near a stream near the tribe several times, picked out the gravel, threw it far away, and dug a large deep pit. Then, He turned his sight to the land, where the primitive people found legru, and moved some of the purple-red tubers, including the roots and soil, to the deep pit on the island and buried them. In this way, there was also legru on this island with a similar environment to the land, and the primitive people did not have to transport these tubers, that were already heavy, and took up space. As for the insect honey, Guo Sen thought it would be more appropriate to let these primitive people collect it themselves. After all, there was no such a large area of flowers on this huge island. Even if the insects were brought here, they would not find much to eat. And Guo Sen could not make the flowers reproduce quickly here in a short time. Moreover, if there was really everything on this island, the primitive people would probably not continue to deal with the turtle dragons, and this domesticated civilization would gradually die out. After taking a last look at the tribe of primitive people, Guo Sen turned his sights to the last piece of land, the bitter cold land in the far north. When he first split the entire ancient continent, he did not think of squeezing the precious land resources into a low temperature area that is completely unsuitable for any life to exist. But the fact is that there is such a piece of land, and the center point is almost moving to the pole of the sphere. Such a large piece of land has been completely covered by glaciers, and there is not even a bit of land in the temperate zone. There are only a few extremely tall mountains left on it. The white snow dyed the entire land into a desolate place, and the black mountain was extremely eye-catching. Guo Sen looked at this piece of land and searched carefully. After searching for a long time, he did not find any traces of life on it. Whether it is trees, animals, or even small insects or grass, there are no. There are ice, snow, and rocks everywhere. Think about the north and south poles on the earth, which are not forbidden areas for life like here. There are at least penguins, polar bears, seals and so on there. Guo Sen couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. What should I do? Should we push this land towards the temperate zone and make it a paradise for animals and plants again? Or should we keep it as it is? After thinking for a long time, Guo Sen thought that it would be better to make this land the last piece of pure land like Antarctica on Earth. Chapter 106 Deep Understanding. One day in heaven is 1 year on earth. Guo Sen finally had a deep understanding of this sentence. However, this was a wonderful thing that he gradually understood after he became a planet. When orbiting around the huge red star, it felt like it didn't take too long to make a circle, and it simply turned dozens of circles. When he shifted his sight to the sphere, this sense of time became confused and became normal. Guo Sen didn't understand what the mystery was, but if he wanted to make time go faster, he just needed to focus his sight on the space. At the same time, Guo Sen was also thinking, how long has it been since he had the consciousness of the planet? Millions? Tens of millions? Or hundreds of millions of years? Or even longer? He couldn't tell. After all, since he awakened to become the consciousness of the planet, his consciousness had fallen asleep twice. And these 2 times, he missed quite a lot of things. The first time, he missed the evolution from single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms. The second time, he completely missed the process of more biological evolution. During this time, he even missed a period of time again, when he moved to the current orbit, and became a planet, in order to get rid of his satellite identity. When he came to his senses, there were already intelligent life forms on the sphere that surprised him. Moreover, there were far more than one kind. From the lizardmen, white wolves, black wolves, and wolves he saw at the beginning, to the sheepmen, primitive people, birdmen, giants, armored orcs, and even the giant insects, there were as many as 10 species that had lived on his sphere at the same time. And the distribution of lizardmen, dwarves, and primitive people was not only on one piece of land. According to common sense, would so many intelligent creatures evolve on a planet at the same time? Guo Sen didn't know whether this happened on Earth in ancient times, but he knew one thing, that is, these intelligent creatures on the sphere were constantly adapting to everything on their planet. From the beginning, he helped the lizardmen to understand the source of fire, helped the white wolf tribe to defeat the black wolf tribe, brought transportation tools to the dwarves, scattered the birdman tribe to various places on the land, and even transplanted a tuberous plant to the island of primitive people. Guo Sen participated fully from the beginning, but later he just used more observation and some small push to promote their civilization. This is also the truth he slowly realized. It seems that it is more difficult for children who are spoiled to achieve great things. Everything is done for them. When the time comes, everything depends on this invisible and intangible power, and they have no motivation at all. Forget about evolution and development. Maybe it won't be surprising if they go extinct at any time. Just like the little red and green in the single cell era. Excessive pampering will make them degenerate and be eliminated by their peers who are always in a sense of crisis. If Guo Sen is given another chance, he will definitely not teach them so much when he first sees the lizardman, nor will he help the white wolf tribe defeat the black wolf tribe. However, it's too late now. What Guo Sen needs to do next is not to regret, but to continue to rapidly advance the civilizations of these different races in constant observation. He has successfully transformed most of these races from the Stone Age to the Iron or Bronze Age, but there is still a lot he needs to do next. From simple to complex, it requires a process of quantitative change to qualitative change. In this process, Guo Sen has only taken the first step. The entire planet has 9 continents. Except for the one, located in the northernmost part, there are intelligent life forms on other lands. Among them, except for the giant insect race that can't see any civilization evolving, the rest have human-like forms. Why are the giant insect races so special? Or, why are the others so special? Guo Sen feels that he seems to have overlooked one thing. That is, the life on his sphere has more or less some characteristics that meet the human feature. Is it really that easy to find an alien life form in the universe that is highly similar to humans? Why not have 6 arms or a lot of legs? How low is the probability of having such an intelligent life form that is similar to the human form on Earth? Guo Sen was troubled by questions one after another. He pondered and looked at the 9 continents on the sphere. In the entire sphere, all the land was separated by the vast ocean and became independent. The densely packed archipelago, dotted in the vast ocean, seemed extremely lonely. The continent of the lizardman was above the equator, which was caused by his moving plates at that time. It was originally below the southern hemisphere, but now it has been moved to the center of the sphere and has completely become a tropical continent, maintaining humid and hot weather all year round. However, because of this, there are a lot of swamps and lakes, and there are also many rivers. The continent where the white wolf people are located is farther south of the continent where the lizard people are located. There are dense coniferous forests and developed forest resources, but the overall terrain is relatively low. Most of them are in the high latitude cold temperate zone with suitable temperatures. The land where the dwarves and the red-haired and black-haired ape people are distributed spans the northern and southern hemispheres. There are both tropical areas in the equatorial region and high latitude areas close to the cold zone. However, the most eye-catching is the extremely large plateau in the center of the entire land. The river network flows on the plateau and pours down from the towering cliffs, forming countless spectacular waterfalls with a height of more than hundreds of meters. As for the land, where the sheep people are located, it is the largest of all the lands, and it is also a place with almost all terrains. The sheep people who can mine rock salt and the dwarf tribe who have started civilization again are located in the Gobi and a river valley respectively. Located in the northern hemisphere, it also has quite a lot of volcanic areas, and in one of the craters, there is a forgotten land. Another continent that also has the forgotten land is almost entirely within the northern hemisphere. There are also 2 human tribes and a lizard tribe here. However, due to the previous war, the lizards have become the strongest here. There are many rushing rivers and numerous lakes between the numerous volcanoes, which have bred large tracts of forests and grasslands. The land where the bird tribe is located is almost entirely located near the equator. Even though they have raised the terrain there, created plateaus, and raised mountains, the temperature and humidity here are still very high. Because of this, the animal and plant resources here seem to be the richest of all the land. Looking at the land where giants, armored orcs, and giant insects live, there are high mountains and a large number of lakes and rivers, and grassland terrain occupies the vast majority of the area here. Compared with other places, the gold reserves here seem to be abnormally large. the continent in the extreme south where the primitive people who eat fish and drink wine are located, which I just saw not long ago. Only those thousands of islands like pearls in the land edge near the north side have relatively suitable temperatures. After looking at these 8 continents with intelligent life, Guo Sen suddenly felt a sense of accomplishment. This is everything he created. After this chapter, all the intelligent creatures on the 9 continents have been thoroughly introduced. Next, please continue to pay attention to the new round of evolution of civilization. Chapter 107, Land of Salamanders. More. Please subscribe. Before taking the next step, Guo Sen thought about it and decided to give all these continents a name. First, the continent where the lizardmen were first encountered. Guo Sen thought about it and decided that, since it was occupied by the lizardmen and this land was basically located in the tropics, it would be better to call it the land of hot lizards. The continent where the white wolf tribe was encountered was just south of the land of hot lizards, so he simply called it the land of howling according to their characteristics. As for the continent where the dwarves who liked mining and smelting lived, Guo Sen remembered that he had controlled a stone statue and changed his name to God of the Hill, so he simply called it the land of Mine Hills. The land of Mine Hills was just north of the land of hot lizards. The continent where the sheepmen and dwarves lived together was located in the northwest of the land of Mine Hills. Guo Sen looked at this vast and most extensive land and remembered the Gobi Desert where the sheepmen lived, so he simply called it the Infinite Land. A little to the west of the Endless Wasteland is the continent where the fruit and vegetable tribe, another human tribe, and the poisonous lizardmen live together. There are forests everywhere and many volcanoes here. Guo Sen thought about their enthusiasm for vegetarianism, hot springs, and fighting, and thought it would be better to call it the land of enthusiasm. The land in the center, which is the smallest piece, is located near the equator. There live bad people who are extremely fanatical and devout to various so-called gods. In this case, let's call it the land of the gods. The place occupied by giants, armored orcs and giant insects is located in the southern hemisphere. Southeast of the land of enthusiasm is almost all grassland, but it is rich in gold, and that gold comes from several meteorites hitting this place. Let's call it the land of falling stars. The primitive people who collect insect honey and root wine live in the extreme south, and most of the continents are covered with swamps and frozen soil. Guo Sen thinks that it should be named according to its characteristics. The land of frozen swamp is relatively better. As for the last piece of land in the far north, which was completely covered by glaciers and frozen snow, Guo Sen didn't remember it until the end, so he called it Forgotten Land. After naming all these lands, what Guo Sen had to do was to observe the civilizations on each continent and see how far they had developed. While Guo Sen was orbiting the star, he didn't forget to count how many times he had turned. After the Forgotten Land left his sight, he had already turned the clock back 200 years. Moreover, from the beginning of contact with these intelligent creatures to the observation of the last piece of land, there was a process of about 100 years. If you add them together, these 300 years are enough for the intelligent creatures on the sphere to have a fairly ample time for the civilization evolution process. What can be done in 300 years? Expand the tribe, establish a larger tribe, research and discover more production technologies. There are too many things. Guo Sen decided to start with the hot lizard land. This is where he first met the intelligent creatures on the sphere, and it is also the continent where the race he interfered with the most survives. Lizardmen. When Guo Sen first encountered these humanoid creatures covered with scales and walking upright, he was extremely puzzled and confused at first. In his opinion, no matter what, it is impossible for cold-blooded creatures like lizards and dinosaurs to evolve into human-like, upright and intelligent creatures. But not only did they evolve, they even had their own language, could make weapons and tools, and had the skills to use those weapons to hunt. They could even use wood to build a fence and establish a tribe. This was simply unimaginable for Guo Sen, who was originally an earthling. Last time, Guo Sen taught them how to use fire to cook meat, make weapons and pottery, and even gave them a small mountain of malachite. So, after nearly 300 years of development, how far will these lizard people push this civilization catalyzed by fire? Guo Sen lowered his sight and came to the land of fire lizards. At this time, the light of the stars had not yet swept across this continent. In the endless and quiet forest, there were dozens of flames burning. Guo Sen was delighted to see that these dozens of flames were distributed within a few hundred square kilometers near the original tribe and had occupied a small area on the west side of this land. What does this show? The lizard people have expanded the light of civilization. The emergence of fire is highly accidental. Before mastering fire, primitive humans lived a life of eating raw meat and drinking blood. The mountain fire caused by accidental thunder can make primitive people understand the horror and ruthlessness of such things, and it takes longer to make use of them. Last time, Guo Sen compressed this period of time that might take a long time to a very short time, using the god's coming that he had used before to make the magma and wooden sticks and hay into the first flame of this continent. This flame has now spread the light of civilization of the lizard people to a fairly wide range. Guo Sen continued to lower his sight. He soon saw the tribe of the lizard people who had come 300 years ago, and it was also the tribe with the largest flame. Compared to the first time I saw this place, the change was really huge. The tall wooden stakes sharpened by sharp weapons were neatly arranged together, surrounding a vast area of tens of thousands of square meters of land, forming a larger tribe. Guo Sen saw that compared with before, there were no more simple stone houses here, but wooden houses built by cutting the whole wooden stakes neatly, covered with roofs made of various hay and animal skins. These houses were not built randomly, but radiated from the small square in the center to form 4 straight and wide avenues. Countless lizardmen wearing animal skins were walking and carrying things on these avenues, or stopping to talk, which was very lively. Guo Sen even noticed that these lizardmen had small metal rings with dark golden light on their tails. Wow, have they learned even this fashionable thing? However, he suddenly noticed that the location of the large bonfire in the center of the tribe was now replaced by a stone statue. Guo Sen lowered his eyes and observed carefully. The statue was not very beautiful, nor was it very delicate, but one could still see the strange lines carved from a single piece of rock, which seemed to represent the sacredness and majesty of a lizardman standing in a raging fire. Unexpectedly, Guo Sen originally thought that it was the appearance of the lizardman leader whom he had seen, but suddenly he took a look at it. Why are there so many wrinkles on this statue? Damn. Could it be that? Chapter 108 Inheritance. More. Please subscribe. There is no doubt that this sacred statue standing in the fire, with one hand raised to the sky and his mouth open as if saying something, is not the mighty tribal chieftain that Guo Sen thought had been visited by God. Judging from the wrinkles on his face and his short stature, isn't this guy the old lizard man from the past? What the hell is going on? Are these lizard men stupid? It wasn't God who visited this old man in the past. Guo Sen looked puzzled as a group of lizard men wearing feather crowns on their heads came to the statue carrying a large pile of fruits, barbecue, dried meat, etc., and put them neatly on the exquisite long ceramic plate, and then knelt on the ground. They closed their eyes, put their hands together, and then prostrated themselves on the ground, worshipping constantly. God of prophecy, your great guidance has made our tribe prosperous. Please bless us to spread the shining things to more land. The lizardman repeated this sentence and knelt down to the rock statue again and again. Guo Sen understood. So that's it. The old lizard man at that time actually usurped the fruits of victory. Now think about it carefully. When I was teaching the lizardman metallurgy, pottery making, barbecue, etc., this old guy was the most enthusiastic learner beside me. The old guy first studied malachite and carefully observed how to refine copper blocks. Later, he volunteered to teach other lizardmen tirelessly, just like a teacher, passing on these newly learned skills. Guo Sen remembered that after the arrival of the gods, the intelligent life that was visited by the gods would lose the memory of that period at the same time. After the leader was relieved of the arrival of the gods, he became just the big guy with only strength. I'm afraid that this old lizardman finally established his position through this. After passing on all the knowledge, the old guy retired and became the object of worship for the lizardman. Guo Sen checked the statue and found a lizardman skeleton buried with countless exquisite bronze artifacts. This old guy, He really became the god of prophecy. Guo Sen thought that it would be better to put this matter aside. It is impossible to revive the old guy now. He asked him how shameless he was to dare to play such a trick. He looked around. The tribe was divided by the river. The side with the statue was the residential area. Guo Sen counted and found that there were more than 500 wooden houses. On the other side of the river was the location of the lizardman's various workshops. The various workers here were busy doing various tasks, and they didn't even have time to rest. He observed carefully and found that there was not only a blast furnace for firing pottery that had been vitrified, but also a ground furnace made of ceramic bricks and clay for refining copper blocks. What surprised Guo Sen even more was that the lizardman not only improved the copper and developed it into bronze, but also built a copper anvil that looked like a real thing and upgraded the original weapon grinding skills. Originally it was just one process, but Guo Sen looked at the workers carefully and found that they had improved it to 5 processes in pursuit of sharpness, turning those bronze weapons into extremely sharp and terrifying weapons. The lizardmen seemed to be a race that liked to think about things. They not only made spear tips, but also started to develop new weapons. Guo Sen noticed that they seemed to have made a strange weapon. It was a kind of scimitar with a very large arc like a crescent moon. The blade was ground very thin. I'm afraid that if anyone holds this weapon, he only needs to lightly scratch the enemy's abdomen, and the opponent will be disemboweled in an instant. You can use a spear from a distance, and you can use this scimitar to defeat the enemy at a close distance. Wait, what is this? Guo Sen was still imagining the heroic posture of the lizardman fighting, and suddenly found that in the warehouse full of weapons, there were some things like animal skins. Seeing that no one was paying attention nearby, he pulled out one of the clothes with a thought, and the other clothes suddenly slipped to the ground, making a series of muffled sounds. Muffled sounds? Guo Sen was a little strange. Animal skins wouldn't make metallic sounds. He carefully observed these animal skin clothes and suddenly found that these lizardmen actually made a special battle suit with bronze armor inside and animal skin glued on the outside. This is quite interesting. The lizardmen actually had the consciousness to make armor from nothing to something. This is the most difficult. Before the arrival of the gods, the primitive people could only make stone guns and wooden shields. Presumably, those were also what they came up with after thousands of years of hard work, right? And this armor actually appeared in just over 300 years. When facing the enemy, generally speaking, primitive intelligent races should not think of protecting themselves. When they fight, they usually choose 2 options, either attack or escape. The meaning of the word defense can allow primitive intelligent creatures to completely change the traditional concept of fighting. The appearance of armor is also an almost overwhelming advantage when the weapons are exactly the same as those of the opponent in battle. To put it in simple terms, it means, I stab you, and you die. You stab me, hey, I have armor, I'm not dead, fight back, you die. This is really too sneaky. However, this technology of sticking animal skins to the outside of armor is definitely not used to deal with wild beasts. Guo Sen remembered that when he was here 300 years ago, the old lizard man once said that there were other hostile lizardman tribes nearby. Could it be that it was used to confuse those people? No, wait. Guo Sen thought again. This smelting technology had been taught to these lizardmen 300 years ago. Even if they love peace, they would have wiped out all the nearby enemy tribes, right? At this moment, he suddenly heard a uniform roar coming from not far away. Guo Sen quickly moved his sight away from here. He found that in a corner of this tribe, a large group of lizardmen were gathering at this time. They carried long spears, held polished bronze shields, had scimitars on their waists, and wore almost completely tailor-made animal skin metal armor. These lizardmen soldiers stood straight, with their tails with 2 copper rings dragging behind them, neat and uniform, looking heroic and extraordinary. There was no doubt that these nearly 400 soldiers were the lizardmen's troops. They stood far apart from each other, more than 5 meters away from each other. A lizardman with 4 copper rings on his tail stood directly opposite them. Draw your sword, he suddenly shouted, and gave the order. Ha! The lizardmen suddenly stabbed their long spears into the ground at an unimaginable speed, and instantly drew out their scimitars in their hands. slashing forward. Defense. Ha. They immediately drew out their long spears and gathered together, holding up those huge bronze shields as tall as a person. The lizardmen's troops instantly became 3 layers of metal walls inside and outside, and countless spear tips stretched out from the cracks in the walls. Guo Sen suddenly felt that this battle looked familiar. Wasn't this the same tactic used by those warlike primitive people? How come great minds think alike? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Assumptions. First update. Please subscribe. There is no doubt that the shield formation used by this group of lizardmen is simply an enhanced version of the gun formation used by those warlike primitive people on another land. But those guys thought they were invincible, and finally they all died. The ones who defeated them happened to be the same kind of lizardmen, those guys covered with purple-red scales. However, there shouldn't be any enemies spraying poison gas here, right? Besides, where are the enemies? Since there is such a powerful shield formation, unless the opponent is hanging, it must be invincible, right? These questions made Guo Sen a little confused. Why did such a thing happen? He thought that he could only answer these doubts by going to the tribes that had been lit with fire. Guo Sen shifted his sights to a tribe that was nearly 10 kilometers away from here. However, unlike here, the lizardman tribe here seemed a little different. They did not use wooden stakes to build walls like the previous tribes, but used ceramic square bricks and mud to inlay between wooden stakes about 1 meter apart. The thickness of the square bricks is close to 1 meter, which looks almost indestructible, like a very primitive city wall. Oh wow. They can actually build a more powerful and solid city wall. The technology of these lizardmen has really advanced by leaps and bounds. Guo Sen couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. This is all because of our good teaching. The lizardmen who are good at learning seem to have not been idle in these 300 years. No, why didn't the previous tribe build this kind of city wall? Guo Sen suddenly found something a bit abnormal. The previous lizard tribe had a lot of clay, so why didn't they use ceramic bricks to make this kind of city wall? This is strange. He decided to observe it again. The lizardmen wearing animal skins were standing on the top of the brick wall about 3 meters high, holding shining bronze spears in their hands. They had sharp eyes and steady steps, and they were vigilantly observing everything around them, and they kept walking and patrolling. There were dozens of such lizardmen sentries on the walls facing all directions. The number of people is a little too many, right? What are they guarding against? Guo Sen had more questions, and he continued to observe. This tribe surrounded by a wall is smaller than the previous one, but not too much smaller. Whether it is residential houses or various functional buildings, they are almost the same as before, but the styles are completely different. It seems that this side prefers to use ceramic bricks as the main building material instead of wood, and the clothes of the lizards living inside seem to be different from the one just seen. They don't have any copper rings on their tails, but they all wear bronze bracelets like bracelets on their right arms, which make a rustling sound when they walk. Guo Sen looked at the gate of the tribe. There were even more than a dozen lizards with weapons hanging on their bodies patrolling constantly, and the direction they were facing was the tribe just now. In the tribe, there was a lizard man wearing a fur hat on his head, shouting something to a group of fully armed lizards. From time to time, they raised their arms and shouted, seeming to be extremely excited. Why are both tribes like this? Strange. Could it be that they want to unite to attack the other tribe? Guo Sen looked to the north, not far from here, near the hilly area, where there was indeed a tribe. He took a quick look. Strange, the people living here were also lizardmen, and they seemed to be repeating the things repeated by the first 2 tribes, and they seemed to be in a state of preparation for war. What was going on? Guo Sen couldn't figure it out. Could it be that these lizardmen were going to attack something collectively? He once again looked for all the places in this area where fire had been seen before. After some inspection, Guo Sen found a total of 16 tribes. They were all established by lizardmen. The lizardmen in these distant tribes, whether in their attire, weapons in their hands, or buildings in the tribes, were actually similar. Looking at these tribes, Guo Sen suddenly had some feelings. Does the lizardman race, that he had helped, seem to have the rudiment of the consciousness of a country in these 300 years? This consciousness will prompt the lizardmen to gradually expand their territory, allowing them to continuously improve various technologies and continue to evolve civilization forward. However, this premise is based on the assumption that these lizardmen are really ruled by a unified chief. Guo Sen looked at each tribe and saw that there seemed to be a large number of lizardmen troops doing something similar to training, and each of them looked nervous, not knowing what they were doing. He suddenly had an ominous premonition. Wouldn't these lizardmen tribes all be independent? They don't look like a whole, and seem to have different focuses in some aspects of civilization. They all look like they are wearing animal skins, holding alloy bronze weapons, and even the various crafts are not much different. But if you look closely, whether it is the shield formation and leather armor in the first tribe, the city walls of the second tribe, or those who are desperately practicing throwing spears in the third tribe, they are all full of disobedience. Guo Sen suddenly had an assumption. 300 years ago, the lizardmen he helped use the weapon manufacturing technology that was N years ahead to kill all the nearby lizardmen tribes and unify all the nearby areas. In the process of their continuous reproduction and integration over the past 300 years, they also brought more advanced technologies to these tribes. However, due to the continuous accumulation of contradictions and some special reasons, this tribal union that looked like a country fell apart. The lizardmen of each tribe, who had a rebellious consciousness, formed new tribes. The tribes, which had different understandings of various skills, each further extended these skills. That's why Guo Sen saw different characteristics in different tribes. Of course, this is just an assumption, the most likely assumption. But then again, if there is no other more logical assumption, this assumption is the real fact. Guo Sen decided to go to the second tribe he saw to explore. After all, he had just seen lizardmen who seemed to be tamed there. He shifted his sights, and at the same time, he had an idea. My warriors, we don't need temporary peace. For those tribes that covet our land and people, the only thing we have to do is to conquer them all. Exclamation mark. Conquer! Exclamation mark. Guo Sen suddenly found that he seemed to have guessed right. Chapter 110 locked. Second update. Please subscribe. What does it feel like to have the least expected thing happen? Originally, he thought that the lizardmen, who he had helped to improve civilization, should have unified all the 16 tribes. When he started the next step, he heard the battle declaration of the second tribe. However, this is still not very certain. What if they are not fighting against the same tribe? Guo Sen looked at the tribe near the hill with some luck and used telekinesis. We must let the visiting invaders know who is the master of this forest. Fight. It's not very certain here either. Who are the visiting invaders? He didn't give up and looked at the first tribe again. The wise man Wali has helped us do everything. When he comes back and tells us the information that the Limok tribe is attacking the Krilla tribe, it will be time for us to return the humiliation they have given us and regain the lost ground. The will of fire. The will of fire. Wait a minute. Guo Sen suddenly heard something that seemed very important. The wise man wary and the Limok and Krilla tribes. Regardless of what this intelligence is and how it works, what Guo Sen cares about is that they actually know how to name it. This is simply a great progress, okay? Before, no matter which intelligent creature established the tribe, in their collective wisdom, they would only name some items, but would not name a certain individual. At most, it would be leader or chief, and there would be no more. At this time, the name Wary and the names of Limok and Krilla for other tribes actually appeared. The significance of the origin of surnames is an important evidence for distinguishing blood relatives, and it is also an inevitable product when productivity reaches a certain level. After all, with so many more people, it is definitely not okay to call them you, me, him, or this and that. With surnames, it is easier to distinguish each other and facilitate management. This is also an extremely important step taken by this tribe in the evolution of civilization over 300 years. He looked at this group of lizardmen holding bronze shields and extremely excited, and felt much more relieved. This time, it was the product of civilization developed by the lizardmen themselves without any intervention from him. After sighing for a while, Guo Sen returned his attention to the important intelligence they mentioned. This almost confirmed that these lizardmen were acting on their own and hating each other. After all the tribes on this continent were nearby. There was a lizardman named Wise Wary who seemed to have done something. When the enemy's Limok tribe attacked the tribe called Krilla, the troops of this tribe would attack. In short, it was a strategy to lure the tiger away from the mountain. If you take advantage of the moment when the enemy's troops are empty and then attack. If it is in the modern war on Earth with highly developed information technology, this is almost impossible. But in this primitive tribe, where everyone is a blockhead, this trick is quite clever. Wise Wary himself was the source of selling false information. After gaining the trust of the Limok tribe, he sought a high position to provoke an attack, and then went to the Krilla tribe to inform the Limok tribe of the information that the Limok tribe was going to attack. When the Limok tribe sent troops to attack, this tribe would also act at the same time and sneak attack the enemy tribe that was completely unprepared. This trick seems to be very effective. Guo Sen believed that the closest tribe with thick walls was Limok, and the one far away in the hills was Krilla. He didn't think these lizardmen were stupid enough to cross several tribes to find trouble with other tribes. Even if they wanted to, the tribes with their own sphere of influence were not fools and would never allow such a thing to happen. However, in this era, the lizardman wise man Wally who could come up with this plan was a very powerful figure. So, where is this lizardman named Wally? The vast forest, 16 tribes, tens of thousands of lizardmen. If you want to find it, it's probably difficult. When Guo Sen thought about this, he suddenly felt a little strange. In the dense forest, there was a thing with a golden halo, moving slowly. What's going on? What kind of creature can emit this kind of light? Guo Sen saw that it was obviously a moving thing enclosed by a thin circle of halo, and it was still moving from a distance. With strong doubts, Guo Sen quickly approached. However, at a very close distance, he suddenly felt puzzled. The guy with the halo was actually a lizard man wearing animal skins and holding a wooden stick. How could this guy be different from the others? Guo Sen thought he had seen it wrong at first, but at a close distance, the halo was still on the lizard man's body. What's going on? Could it be that this lizard man is born with a luminous system? No, it shouldn't be like this. From an evolutionary point of view, it is impossible for an individual with such a strong change to appear. Even if there is a 1 in a billion chance, the guy who appears will be a guy with fluorescent light, right? But what's the situation with this one? With a halo? Are you a protagonist? Guo Sen was madly complaining in his heart, but he suddenly had an idea. This lizard man who is still walking non-stop, can't he be the one called Wary the Wise? However, at this moment, the halo suddenly disappeared. This made Guo Sen even more confused. The timing is too coincidental, right? I just thought about you, and the light went out. However, just when Guo Sen was thinking that this lizard man might not be Wally, the halo on his body flashed again. The case is solved. Guo Sen knew what was going on. The halo on this guy's body was not a magical and sacred thing evolved from him, but something went wrong with Guo Sen's own visual system. For the purpose of experimentation, Guo Sen refocused on this William the Wise. The halo disappeared. Thinking about where Wally the Wise was, the halo appeared. Oh no. After trying it several times, the halo flickered according to his thoughts. So, it is the selection and locking function? Guo Sen never thought that he had so many abilities. This power of thought seems to be really powerful. It seems that there is nothing that cannot be done, as long as you can think of it. However, he suddenly realized that this was an ability that was released after knowing the existence of William the Wise. Could it be that this is directly related to the naming of the lizard people? With doubts, he silently recited Limok tribe in his heart. Not far away, a golden circular light circle surrounded the lizard tribe with a city wall. Krilla tribe. The tribe on the hill was also immediately covered by the light circle. Damn, this is awesome. Now, the wise man Wally, the Limok tribe, and the Krilla tribe are all in the state of being selected. Guo Sen suddenly felt that this seemed a bit like a game. Chapter 111 Intentional or Unintentional. Third update. Please subscribe. Guo Sen was also a young man who loved games when he was a human, before he became a planet. His favorite games were almost all those real-time strategy games. However, he was not very good at them. The 3 light circles that Guo Sen saw now really looked like the units being selected in those real-time strategy games. But the difference was that Guo Sen's side was real. Moreover, he could control multiple lizard tribes of different camps. Of course, if he wanted, he could also completely control all the lizardmen in the 2 tribes and let them dance his song of Pure Land of Bliss or Lord of Shadows once. This was also very good. There was no need for this. Guo Sen finally had another ability, and he had a feeling that this ability should be the manifestation of the civilization of the lizardmen learning naming. He could finally select and mark something. In the past, he could only put these together in a general way, or simply guess. However, there were still disadvantages. That was that he had to know the name of this intelligent creature or the name of this tribe. This situation would not last too long. Guo Sen understood that his ability would become stronger with the progress of this civilization. Now, Guo Sen also completely confirmed one thing. That is, all his previous guesses were correct. The tribe at the beginning wanted to use the strategy of the wise man Wally to lure the tiger away from the mountain, to make the Limok tribe attack the Krilla tribe, and then take advantage of the opponent's empty troops to conquer the Limok tribe. However, this move seems to require mediation between several nearby tribes, so that they will not make sneak attacks or interfere with this war at this time. But what if the wise man Wally has done all this? Guo Sen looked at several nearby tribes. In addition to placing a few guards at the gate of the tribe and several teams patrolling about 1 kilometer in the tribe, their warriors did not seem to be as tense as these 3 tribes. It was peaceful. Guo Sen understood that they had been appeased. It seems that the wise man Wally has thought of this. It will also make friends with those far away and attack those near. In this way, as long as the Limok tribe starts to attack the Krilla tribe, the tribe of the wise Wally can kill an enemy first. Guo Sen refocused his sight on the lizard man, who was walking around with a flashing halo. This guy was not tall, and was even 2 heads shorter than the lizard man he had seen before. However, whether it was his vertical pupils that were almost amber, or his shiny green scales, or the 2 white horizontal stripes at the corners of his eyes, it showed that this lizard man was different. A cloak-like garment made of several animal skins covered most of his body, and with a slight swing when he walked, a muscular arm holding the handle of the knife was looming. He seemed to be extremely alert to everything around him. His eyes kept looking at all the movements in the forest around him. Even if there was a slight disturbance, he would stop immediately, draw out the 2 knives in his hands, and make all preparations for defense. This kind of caution, of course, also made him move very slowly, as if he had just come out of the Krilla tribe or other tribes, and was still far away from his tribe. In the Limok tribe, Guo Sen had already seen the lizardmen who had already left the gate of the tribe, rubbing their hands and getting ready. From the roars and the fighting spirit shown, it can be seen that this group of people seemed to be able to set off at any time. It seems that the time difference was not well played. In other words, this so-called wise man Wally did not fully control the battle situation. At least from the current situation, it is like this. But now, as long as Wally can return to the tribe smoothly, even if the troops of the Limok tribe have reached the Krilla tribe, the people of his tribe can also march quickly to attack the Limok tribe. The premise is that Wally can return to his tribe. His current location is just between Limok and Krilla, and it is also on a road that the lizardmen warriors of the Limok tribe will definitely pass. Guo Sen was puzzled. Was this Wally a wise man? Why did he have to choose such a man-made road in the jungle? He didn't think that the people of the Limok tribe would not take this road and go to a more difficult place. Then, the wise Wally and them would definitely meet. If so, then wouldn't all the strategies he designed for the tribe be ruined? After the encounter, the wise Wally would definitely be caught by these people, right? Then how could he go back to report the news? Guo Sen suddenly felt that this wise wally seemed to be a mentally retarded wally, unless he really did it on purpose. After a while, Guo Sen saw that the people of the Limok tribe seemed to have recovered from the arrogant roar and gathered into a neat army. With the hat-wearing lizard man he had seen before as the leader, they began to move towards the direction of the Krilla tribe. Of course, they took the main road. Guo Sen looked at the wise wally. This guy seemed to have heard the roar in the distance stop and suddenly stood still. Haha, is he going to hide or take the small road? However, the wise man wally suddenly took out a piece of dried meat from his cloak, sat cross-legged on the ground, and started to eat it. What the hell? What's going on? Guo Sen was a little confused. Not running away or hiding, but eating dried meat leisurely. Is Wally really a mentally retarded person? Or Guo Sen decided to wait and see. He also thought of a possibility, although the probability of this possibility was too low. The army of the Limok tribe was mighty and the speed was much faster than expected. For them, it only took a short time to reach a distance of more than 10 kilometers. However, the army led by the leader wearing the hat did not expect that they would see an acquaintance halfway. Hey, wise Wally, why are you here? The leader signaled the puzzled warriors behind him to stop. For them, it was strange to meet him in such a place. Chief Tassander, I'm just having a meal. Wally made a voice, and to Guo Sen's surprise, the voice was very young. Eat? The leader Tassander pointed his spear at Wally. In a place like this? Shouldn't you have gone to the Fueler tribe to negotiate for us, asking them to join us in killing those damned Krilla bastards? I came back after I finished. Not only did I convince those fools from Fueler, I also persuaded the people from the Ribbit tribe and the Komodo tribe. They promised not to join your fight with the Krilla tribe. The wise Wally said slowly, without even looking at the tip of the spear, but just put the jerky into his arms. Chapter 112 Chaos, 4th update. Please subscribe. As Guo Sen listened, he locked onto the three tribes of Fueler, Libak and Komodo. These were the tribes that were relatively close to the Krilla tribe. Guo Sen looked at the tribes that had been locked by the golden circle, and then looked at the wise man Wally. If it was really as this guy said, those tribes had been arranged to lobby, then it would be the best news for the legions of the Limok tribe. Fueler came to help with the attack, while the other two tribes stayed put. If everything went well, it would be a sure thing to kill the Krilla tribe. Guo Sen looked at this huge legion of 800 people and believed that they would come out in full force this time. If that's the case, then it's really good. It seems that they also like the generous gifts we sent over. Wise Wally, we will also follow the agreement and will not join the Fueler and Libak tribes to attack you, Callipula. After saying this, the leader Tassander laughed. Leader, we are grateful for your mercy, so we offer so much food and sacred stones. Of course, there is also a bigger one, which is for you alone. The wise man Wally looked very humble. HMPH, I'm glad to know. Be careful. When we come back, bring us some more weapons you made. The wise man Wally nodded at him, respectfully hid on the side of the road, and said nothing more. The leader Tassander waved his hand, and a large string of bronze rings on his right arm rustled. The army of nearly 800 people followed him, and continued to move forward. Guo Sen locked onto Karapala, and it was indeed the tribe at the beginning. However, this is a bit strange. The tribe there can use advanced weapon manufacturing technology with shield formations and animal skin copper armor, and the population is not that small. Why are they still afraid of the Limok tribe? Guo Sen turned his sights back to the Limok tribe, carefully looking for the contradiction. There were only 4 soldiers patrolling on the city wall, and only 10 guards at the door. This is completely different from the state seen before. Guo Sen also noticed that, with all the combat units, it would be good for this tribe to pull out 100 people. It really came out in full force to kill the Krilla tribe. Are they really confident about the Callipula tribe in the rear? They are too bold, aren't they? Guo Sen looked around carefully, but he didn't see anything special in this tribe whose only wall looked quite powerful. When he saw the military forces in the Fueler and Libak tribes, he finally understood why the Limok tribe said that to the wise man Wally. Almost every one of those 2 tribes has a combat power of nearly 1,500. If the 3 tribes were to unite, 3,800 people against the 400 of Caligula. This is definitely not a simple deterrence, but a terrifying power that can wipe out this tribe at any time if they want. Now Guo Sen looked at the Caligula tribe again and felt that, although it was large in area, it was really the one with the smallest population among all the tribes, and the number of legions was also the last. Looking at the food in their warehouse, it was just enough to eat. And what about other tribes? Each one is much stronger than them. People are compared to people. It will make people angry to death. The tribe that was the origin of civilization has now become like this. It is indeed only possible to pay tribute and beg the nearest Limok tribe not to invade. Even if Limok came with 800 fully armed people, it would be enough for those people. However, Guo Sen suddenly understood one thing. The round knives, shield formations and animal skin copper armor of the Caligula tribe were probably made secretly. They sent the wise man Wali to use strategies to paralyze the Limok tribe and build good relations with the tribes farther away in order to remove Limok, the thorn in their eyes first. However, this premises that the wise man Wali can go back in time. Just now, he did tell the leader of Limok that he had joined forces with Fuller to attack together. Would it not take too long for the 2,000 plus troops to defeat the 600 people of the Krilla tribe? And the Caligula tribe is much farther away from Limok. Is it still in time? Guo Sen felt that this wise man Wali might really be a mentally retarded Wali. Limok's 800-man army soon passed by the wise man Wali. Just when Guo Sen wanted to see how careless this lizardman who had been walking slowly was, he suddenly found that he actually started running. He walked so slowly just now, and even stopped. Was he waiting for the Limok tribe on purpose? Now he was running straight to Caligula again. Guo Sen found that he might have underestimated this wise man Wali. The lizardman's foot speed seemed to be much faster than the Limok tribe's army. When the wise Wali, who was not tall, ran, his cloak almost became a Superman's and floated behind him. Guo Sen had seen the endurance of the lizardman when he experienced their hunting 300 years ago. This race seemed to have endless energy. Whether in battle, walking, or carrying, it was like drinking countless green bulls. And in this short period of 300 years, they also became a little faster, which was a world of difference from before. Looking at the running speed of the wise man Wali, Guo Sen didn't know if he still had the title of Lightning Wali or Flying Wali on the grass. Isn't it too fast? Those Limok core haven't walked 2 kilometers yet, and this guy has run nearly 4 kilometers. However, how much time can this make up? If the joint forces of Limok and Fuller attack Kerala and then return, if it is shorter than the time it takes for Caligula to capture the Limok tribe, then the plan of the wise Wali will be completely meaningless. And now it seems that the probability of such a thing happening is really not too small. Moreover, even if the Limok tribe is captured, can Caligula defend it when the Limok core returns to the city? These are all problems. However, Guo Sen's current inference is based on the fact that what the wise Wali said to the leader is completely true. If Fuller does not send troops, and Limok and Kerala fight hard, or even win a miserable victory, then the Caligula tribe's plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain will have no problem at all. Is that the case? Guo Sen followed the wise man Wali. He had already arrived at the Caligula tribe. Willy Wally, you are finally back. That other party. Haha, let me rest for a while. Willy Wally lay on the ground, surrounded by a circle of people, looking very anxious. Guo Sen noticed that among them there were guys who looked like priests that he had seen before, and there were also fully armed warriors, but the common point was that they all had a lot of copper rings hanging on their tails. These people were probably the big shots of the Caligula tribe, right? Chapter 113 Common Purpose, 5th update. Please subscribe. After lying for a while, the wise man Wali finally stood up after drinking some water. His slow movements made the bigwigs in the tribe very anxious. Wari the wise, what happened? Hurry up. The priest-like lizard man scratched his head and asked hurriedly. Yes. Tell me. Our warriors are ready. You won't fail, will you? Good news or bad news? The wise man Wali clapped his hands. Don't worry, if you go out so quickly, aren't you afraid that Limok's army will run back? We are not sure that we can defeat them who have twice as many people as us. The wise man Wally waved his hand, signaling everyone not to rush. The lizardmen looked at each other and nodded. I have already dealt with the 3 tribes of Fuller, Ribbok and Komodo, don't worry. After the wise man Wally said this, the lizardmen also breathed a sigh of relief. Then will Fuller really follow your plan, and after joining forces with Limok, when they attack the Krilla tribe, they will. Yes, our gifts are rich enough. Who wants a too dangerous tribe to exist in this forest? The wise man Wally interrupted the Legion commander and yawned. The lizardman grinned with joy. I have also appeased the 2 of Ribbok and Komodo. They will not come out to make trouble, but if they come out, ha ha ha. All the lizardmen at the scene also laughed. After a while, under the command of the wise Wally, a small army of 400 fully armed people led by the Legion commander named Duke gathered outside the tribe and set off for the Limok tribe. After watching them quickly cross the road in the forest and head straight for the destination, Guo Sen also went to investigate the Fuller tribe. The 1,000-man army there had also gathered. Now, he finally understood the routine of this wise Wally. This person has calculated everything. Taking advantage of the surrounding tribes' concerns about the Limok tribe, the Colossal tribe contributed quite a lot of gifts to the 3 tribes, and after winning their trust, they collectively attacked the Limok tribe. The strategy of the wise man Wally should be like this. He first went to the Limok tribe to express his submission, and contributed tribute, begging the other party not to attack. Then, he told them that they could unite with the Fuller tribe to attack the Krilla tribe. Then, he went to the Krilla tribe and told them to be prepared, and then he and the Fuller tribe would cooperate inside and outside to eliminate the 800 Limok legions. As for the other 2 tribes that were relatively close, they only needed to be told not to act rashly and to offer gifts. The reason why the Colossal tribe where he was not in a hurry to attack was that the time difference he designed for the 2 tribes to kill the uninformed Limok legions was enough for them to eliminate the Limok tribe, make friends with those far away, and attack those near, plus lure the tiger away from the mountain. This wise man Wally, his wisdom really surpassed all the lizardmen Guo Sen had ever seen. If everything goes well, then the Colossal tribe will eliminate the opponent who is closest to them, and the biggest threat. However, the laughter of the wise man Wally just now seems to hide something else. Could it be that Guo Sen's previous speculations have become reality? So will what happens next be as he expected? However, if this is the case, then this wise man Wally can really become Wally the Sage. Guo Sen quickly locked onto the Limok core. Their speed of movement is not slow. They are passing through the jungle quickly. They are not disturbed along the way. It didn't take long for them to reach a position 2 kilometers away from the Krilla tribe. This is a fairly large lakeside with sparse vegetation. It is no problem to accommodate only 2 or 3,000 lizardmen. At the same time, the 1,500 troops of the Fuller tribe also set out from the tribe, and they are not far from the Limok core. Guo Sen locked onto the Fuller core and found that they were almost heading straight for the location of the Limok core. It seems that they want to meet up first. The leader of the Limok core was adding fuel to the already extremely excited warriors' fighting spirit. Now is the moment for our Limok tribe to show its glory. Let us make sure that the bastards of Krilla who killed our previous leader will not see the light of Sanko tomorrow. Kill. In this earth-shaking shout, the lizardmen became more excited. They seemed to have seen the scene of breaking through the Krilla tribe and killing them all. However, that was just what they thought. Guo Sen also noticed that these lizardmen called the star Sanko and the dwarves called it Tanta. It seems that it is necessary to unify the names in the future, otherwise it will be too confusing. It didn't take too long for the Fuller Corps to bypass a small road and arrive here. Their legion stopped more than 100 meters away from the Limok Corps, but Guo Sen noticed that these people seemed to be about 1/3 less, only about 1,000 people. What about the other 500 people? This small legion seemed to go to the Krilla tribe from another road. Oh, no. The good show will be staged later. If we follow the script of the wise man Wally, it should be like this. The leader of the Fuller Legion is a giant who is nearly 2 meters and 5 meters tall, with bronze ornaments on his knees and wrists. This tribe seems to prefer to pile copper rings on his ankles. He tightly grasped a bronze spear that was almost twice as long as others in his hand, looking very majestic. Tansander of Limak, I believe that the wise Wali has told you the plan, right? That's right, Shaliluo, our ally. In order to eliminate the Krilla tribe, the hateful opponent we have long wanted to kill, we must unite. Tansander, the leader of Limak, stepped forward and shook the other's big hand. Allies, eliminate the hateful Krilla. Shaliluo, the leader of Fula, laughed. The troops of the two tribes merged into one. Except for the different positions of the copperings on the arms and ankles, the legions of the two tribes were almost indistinguishable from each other. They continued along the road to the Krilla tribe. Guo Sen turned his attention to the small shield formation of 400 people in Kalabo. Compared to the bloated army of nearly 2,000 people just now, their army seemed much smaller. However, their speed was not slow, and they were almost all moving forward at the fastest speed. In the more than 10 kilometers of the journey, they had already noticed in a short time that the wise man Wali was also here. He thought that this guy had finished his work and should rest in the tribe. This guy, it seems, is really not a small person. Chapter 114. It couldn't be better. Subscription request. The wise man Wali did not choose to rest in the tribe. Instead, he joined the small army that was going to attack the Limak tribe. However, Guo Sen saw that he did not seem to choose to wear animal skin armor like others, nor did he hold a spear in his hand. His cloak flew back, and he kept running in the front, which was extremely conspicuous. Guo Sen thought about it and understood. The reason why this guy did not rest was probably because he was too cautious. However, what he was going to do was probably what he was thinking about. The Limak and Fula legions locked by the aperture had arrived near the Krilla tribe. The war between them might not take too long, and the Kalipala legion was getting closer and closer to the Limak tribe. The area near the Limak tribe was almost completely covered by tall trees, and there was no open view. The reason why they invented and built this city wall was probably related to this. However, on the side facing the Kalipala tribe, there was still some vision. If they led the army to come, the guards on the city wall here would definitely see it at the first time. So, did the wise man Wali really do what he said in the tribe before, taking advantage of the opponent's main force of the legion, to sneak home with the sneak attack troops? In fact, there is another way to go. Although it is a bolder or more risky strategy. Guo Sen thought of it. Can the wise man Wali think of it? The Limak and Fula legions in the distance still did not move, and the Krilla tribe on the hill was high above. They had long noticed the visiting enemy, but they had long known that this situation would happen, and had prepared all the tribal combatants. Guo Sen looked carefully, and found that, if this tribe built on a small hill wanted to defend well, even if the 2,000 people of the Limak and Fula legions really attacked together, they would definitely not be afraid. The terrain nearby is quite steep, and judging from the weapons reserves of the Krilla tribe, it can definitely hold out for a while. In addition, they have already made a solid double-layer wall defense with stones and wooden stakes. It is definitely not a simple matter to capture it easily. Judging from the weapons of the lizardmen and their total number, even if they enter an offensive, they should not last more than 3 days. What's more, this is not an offensive battle, but a siege of another tribe by two tribes that were successfully persuaded by the wise man Wali. Guo Sen also noticed that the 500-man squad of the Fula tribe that was ambushed in another place had arrived at the other side of the battlefield, and were on standby. Haha, this tribe is not completely without ideas. After killing the main opponent, the Limak tribe, the remaining major concern is the Krilla tribe. However, at this moment, Guo Sen suddenly noticed that 2 more legions of more than 800 people were sent out from their respective tribes, and the direction they were heading seemed to be the place where the 3 forces had already gathered. It was the Rebek and Komodo tribes. Oh, things are becoming more and more interesting. Freela, who had arranged a surprise attack force in advance, and had some small ideas. Krilla, who was apparently on the defensive, but was actually attacking Limak with Freela, Rebek and Komodo, who had said they would not move their troops, now came out in full force, and these unlucky people in the Limak tribe were poor people who were completely blinded by the dark. Is this all the tricks of the wise man Wali? Or, is he thinking more deeply? The answer to this question will only be answered when the next move of the Kalipala Legion comes. So, what will the wise Wali do? Asterisk outside the Limak tribe. Stop. What are you going to do? On the wall of the Limok tribe, the guards of the Carapola Legion were immediately found, and they seemed to have not expected their arrival at all. How could this small tribe, which was just a subordinate tribe before, suddenly come to the city when almost all of its own troops were dispatched? Exclamation mark. What should we do? There are only 30 people in the tribe who can come out to fight. He jumped down immediately and quickly notified the chief and others. All those who were still standing on the city wall, as well as the guards who had been standing guard near the gate, and even the priests and chiefs of the tribe, all gathered outside the tribe. The 30 or so lizardmen who only had bronze spears in their hands were only panicked and terrified in front of the 400 fully armed enemies who came with weapons they had never seen before. You are the wise Wally. Explain to me. What do you want to do? Chief Chick of Limok held a spear in his hand, and his body was trembling slightly. He was originally sidelined by the leader of the Legion, and only at this time would he be pushed to the front. In front of him, the wise Wali stretched out a hand from his cloak, touched the white path beside his right eye, and slowly walked over. Please don't panic, Chief. We just received the words from the leader of the Legion, asking us to lead all the elite in the tribe to go to the Krilla tribe to help, in case the Fueler tribe uses any special means. He stopped about 5 meters away from Chief Chick, squinted his eyes and nodded respectfully. Huh. Chief Chick, the priests, and all the other Limok guards were shocked. You mean, you are not here to attack us? Chief, what are you talking about? How can we have such courage? If the chief who returned from the victory saw us doing such excessive things as you said, wouldn't our 400-man army be killed by the chief's army? Wise Wali said, waving to the Legion commander behind him. Yes, Chief, our purpose is only to help attack the Krilla tribe. The chief promised us that, if we perform well, he would also stop the hostile Fueler tribe from attacking us. The Legion commander also imitated Wise Wali, and was very respectful. Ah. Is that so? Then, Chief Chick suddenly felt that the strength that had been taken out of his body just now returned, and he stood much more steadily. Of course we will not do anything rebellious. We are just passing by here, Chief. Wise Wali answered immediately. After learning that the end of the world would not come, Limok's guards and others all breathed a sigh of relief, and their expressions relaxed. Well, you're going to support the chieftains? Do you need food? Take as much as you need. Chief Chick didn't have much brains, and he was completely different from the wise man Wally. That's really great. The wise man Wally grinned and said with a smile. Chapter 115 Utilization, Subscription Request. The wise man Wally and the leader of the Carapola Legion accepted the kindness of the chieftain Chick of the Limok tribe, a large pile of dried meat. Chieftain, we still have to continue on our journey. Please wait for our victorious return. After bowing lightly, the wise man Wali led the Legion through the Limok tribe again, and continued to move towards the new goal. Chieftain, what on earth are Carapola and the others? The priest was a little confused. To deal with a Krilla tribe with less than 1,000 armed men, did the leader need to call them over? It's good that they are not here to attack us with their troops, even if they really attack us. As I said just now, what will happen when the chieftain and the others return victoriously and occupy this tribe? Chief Chick waved his hand, breathed a sigh of relief, and finally had a smile on his face. He felt that his heart was beating the fastest since he was born. He was even more nervous than the last time when the chieftain almost took out his weapon and turned against him. What if they really came to attack? Their more than 30 soldiers would definitely die. If they surrendered, the chieftain would take the opportunity to kill them when he came back to defeat them, so they would die anyway. Fortunately, they were not here to attack. Chief Chick was very satisfied with the result. Okay, let's go back and eat something. By the way, do you think we should go to the Carapola tribe? I like the beauties there. After the extreme tension, the chief's heart was relieved. In his opinion, the Carapola tribe was indeed willing to be ruled, and became a subordinate of his side. Then it would not be excessive to do something excessive to this subordinate tribe, right? Chief, let's be cautious. The people in Carapola have bad personalities, and may hurt you. The priest next to him was still very calm. He quickly stopped the chief who was a little too proud. Okay, I know. The crisis was resolved, and Limok's fighters and chiefs all returned to where they should be, but this time they had completely relaxed their vigilance. The guards standing on the city wall even ran down, and didn't know what to do. The only guards of the entire tribe were the two guys chatting at the entrance of the tribe. This was all within the expectations of the wise man Wally. Guo Sen noticed that a wave of temporarily formed troops equipped with animal skin armor and bronze spears had set out from the colossal tribe and marched quickly towards this side. This was a ragtag army of more than 200 people led by the leader of the colossal tribe, and most of them were young lizardmen who had not yet grown into adulthood. Their goal was naturally the Limok tribe. As expected, the wise Wally seemed to be thinking the same thing as himself. Moreover, he did think of that step. Just now, their 400-man army did not attack, but paralyzed the enemy and then moved to a new battlefield. The real attack on the Limok tribe was the ragtag army led by the leader. The current situation is the evidence. Prove that the wise Wally has a longer term plan. Just as the wise man Wally and his men left here and continued to march forward, Guo Sen noticed that the situation in the Krilla tribe seemed to have changed again. When Limok and Fueler were about 300 to 400 meters away from the Krilla tribe and were about to discuss how to attack, the Krilla tribe, which had originally closed its gates, suddenly rushed out with fully armed warriors, as many as 700 people. Limok's leader Tansander was obviously overjoyed when he suddenly saw that the Krilla tribe had sent all its troops out of the tribe. Fueler's leader Shaluo, "Look, they are so stupid. Hahaha, indeed, they actually gave up defending and chose to take the initiative to attack. What on earth is in their heads?" Tansander, "It seems that the god of prophecy is also blessing us." Shaluo squinted his eyes and did not look directly at Tansander, who was already in ecstasy beside him. In his small eyes, there was a cruel light. According to the strategy of the wise man Wally, when the Krilla tribe launched a charge, he led the warriors to attack the Limok tribe in front of him. However, Shaluo also had his own little idea. Not far away, he had arranged a small army of 500 people to reap the fruits of victory. After the Fueler army led by him and the Krilla tribe eliminated the 800 people of Limok, he would use the 500 people to eliminate all the combatants of the Krilla tribe. After occupying the Krilla tribe, he would attack the Limok tribe without combat effectiveness and Colossal where the wise man Wally was. In that way, in this war, their huge army of Fueler could instantly rule the 4 tribes. As for the threat from the rear, the Libak and Komodo tribes, the wise man Wally had already said that they would never send troops in chaos, but chose to avoid war and protect themselves at this time. Without worries, what is there for Fueler to fear? The wise man Wally never said that he couldn't do this. Shaluo narrowed his eyes and grinned dryly. The original idea of the wise man Wally might be to liberate from Limok's hands, but he didn't expect it to turn out like this in the end. Thinking so, Shaluo whispered a few words to the warrior next to him. He felt that it was better not to get too close to Limok's troops. Try to avoid casualties among the warriors. It would be better to watch the 2 tribes of Krilla and Limok fight to the death. However, before he had time to pass the order, Kazan, the leader of the Krilla tribe, suddenly roared, "Attack! Eliminate the invaders of Limok." This was the code for the attack that the wise man Wally had set before. Kill. The lizardmen of the Limok tribe have always been brave and warlike. Each of them carries a copper shield on their backs, and when fighting, they stand it upright in front of them, using the length of a bronze spear to form a spear formation. When charging, they can even hang the shield in front of them as solid armor. In the roar of Tansander, all the warriors of Limok, including him, rushed towards the Krilla tribe at the same time. Their ability to fight in the open field in such an open area is the strongest among all the lizard tribes. Tansander, who was extremely eager for victory and slaughter, did not notice that the Fueler Legion led by Shero did not attack at the same time. The leader of the Krilla tribe, Kazan, did not expect that Shero did not sneak attack the Limok Legion at the first time. What on earth? What on earth? He wanted to lead his troops to withdraw to the tribe, but it was too late. The vanguard had already engaged in close combat with the Limok Legion. The battle song composed of the sound of countless bronze spearheads colliding with animal skins, armor, shields, and flesh and blood instantly ignited the battlefield. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 Berserker, Subscription Request. The air was filled with the smell of blood. Countless bronze spears shining with dark golden light collided and fell. They were wielded wildly, and the sharp blades of the spears also turned the fresh lives into nothingness. Limbs broke into pieces and torsos were shattered. Amid countless screams, the lizardmen had already lost any rationality. Whether it was Limek or the Krillak, or whether it was the leader Tansander or the leader Kazan, they all seemed to have lost control in this battle, turning the opponent's blood into their own fearless armor. The lizardmen seemed to have lost control, stepping on the blood flowing from the opponents and their own corpses, and slashing hard. Lying on the opponent's corpse on the ground, the red-stained fingers and the eyes that had lost the luster of life all contributed to the urge to kill in their hearts. For them, the most wonderful feeling at this time was the extreme pleasure of wiping out the opponent, piercing the throat, piercing the eye sockets, and instantly chopping off the arms, legs, and tail. The battle continued. The Limek tribe, which was full of crazy desire for battle, under the leadership of the violent leader Tansander, unknowingly broke the balanced situation and suppressed the Krilla Legion bit by bit. Even the leader of Krilla, Kazan, who retreated to the back, had several fingers on his right hand chopped off. Under the suppression of the Limek Legion, which was more adept at fighting, the number of soldiers of the Krilla Legion was constantly decreasing, and the number of corpses lying in the pool of blood was increasing. Retreat. Retreat. The blood on Kazan's fingers could no longer be restrained and flowed out crazily. The severe pain also constantly stimulated his already fragile nerves. Didn't the wise man Valley say that the Fueler Legion would instantly launch a sneak attack on the Limek Legion next to it after the declaration of battle? Why didn't they make any movement at all? Exclamation mark. The Krilla troops were constantly retreating, and their morale was low, and they had gradually entered chaos. At this time, the leader of the Fueler Legion, Xiaoluo, smelled the opportunity to win this war. The enemy is Limek. He raised a huge bronze spear, pointed it at his former ally, and roared loudly, "The enemy is Limek, kill." Amid the shouts of more than 1,000 lizardmen from Freela, Tansander, who was in the midst of killing, felt as if his brain was pierced by thousands of bronze spears. What did the Freela Legion just say? However, his nearly 100 warriors were instantly killed by Freela's warriors without even understanding what was happening. Damn Freela. What are you going to do? Tansander screamed loudly. He never thought that Freela, the original firm ally, would suddenly turn against him. Shero took the lead and accurately found Tansander among the lizardmen of the Limek Legion. With his arms raised high, Shero used all his strength to chop the spear heavily at him. You can ask the wise man Wally, who will go to the road of death later, about this question. Willie? Tansander did not take the blow with the force of breaking the wind, but rolled on the spot for 2 weeks to avoid it. The giant spear slammed into the ground fiercely and directly blasted a big hole. Dust flew. Humph. Xiaoluo did not say much, but raised his spear and stabbed the enemy again. Have you united? Bastard Fueler, killing us will not do you any good. Tansander knew that with the number of the remaining legions, they had no chance of winning against Fueler, who attacked from the rear, and the Krilla Legion, who made a comeback. United. Guess again. Xiaoluo swung his spear in an arc and instantly chopped down several Limek warriors who were protecting Tansander. You bastard. I'm going to kill you. Tansander screamed. He was completely crazy. Picked up the bronze spears of the fallen soldiers around him and threw them at the traitorous Fueler Legion one by one. In an instant, he nailed dozens of Fueler soldiers to the ground. Seeing the bloody leader's crazy fight, the Limek Legion, which was originally in chaos, also realized that except for a desperate battle, they were surrounded by 2 legions and had no way out. For Limek. For Limek. In the terrifying roar, the Limek soldiers who turned into berserkers went completely crazy. What? Xiaoluo cherished his life very much. He thought that Limek would be completely defeated by them and become a pitiful soul under the gun. However, things turned to the worst. Don't retreat. Meet the enemy. Xiaoluo screamed. He nimbly dodged the bronze spear thrown by Tansander, but he didn't expect that several soldiers around him who had already started to flee also lost their lives. The Krilla Corps, which had fled after the attack, wanted to attack the Fueler Corps under the leadership of Kazan, but they just happened to be killed by the guns of the rejuvenated Limok berserkers. Quick, call the ambush. Go. Sharo knew that this winning force, which was originally used for sneak attacks, had to be put into the battlefield now. Otherwise, their 1,000-man army would probably become the dead souls on the road to death under Limok's crazy counterattack. The ambushers rushed out of the forest quickly and joined the horrible melee before the battlefield became worse. The battlefield was in chaos. The Limok Corps, which had killed Fueler and forced the Krilla Corps to retreat continuously and caused the Krilla Corps to be defeated, had already gained a complete upper hand. With only 400 or 500 people left, they never retreated even in the face of the pincer attack and had seen the dawn of victory. But after the 500 ambushers joined the battle, the balance of victory slid to the Fueler Corps again. Kill Tansander first. All troops, attack. Shero also lost his mind. He ordered the soldiers to take the lead in throwing the giant spear into Limok's army. Kill. In the air, there were suddenly countless death spears flashing with dark golden light. No. Kazan, who had lost almost all of his people, also realized that there was no way to retreat. With great anger and severe pain, he killed the few Limok berserkers closest to him and took advantage of the chaos to run quickly to Tansander's vicinity. However, before he had time to sneak attack, countless weapons covering the sky appeared in his pupils. All that was left for him was the endless fear of the impending death. Tansander, who was still madly slaughtering the Fueler soldiers, knew that he could not escape this time. If I die, I will also take a bastard running on the road of death with me. The spear in his hand flew out and directly stabbed into Kazan's mouth with his mouth wide open. At the same time, the dark shadow of the gun completely covered Tansander's entire body. Chapter 117. Strategy. 4th update. Please subscribe. For Limok. Even though they lost their leader Tansander, Limok's army did not fall into chaos, nor did they think of escaping or surrendering. For them, even so, it was impossible to reverse the entire battle situation. Only death in battle was their only belief to carry out their faith. For Limok. For Tansander. With a roar, the Limok army, which had turned into a berserker, attacked the huge army of Fueler again and again. 400 or 500 people gradually became more than 300, more than 100, and dozens in this violent attack. The remaining Limok warriors no longer had the strength to swing their spears. They struggled to stand up and fell down again. The soldiers of the Fueler army, who were frightened by their madness and kept retreating, were about to break their spirits at any time. Even though their own number was far greater than these dozens of people, they could not go forward to meet the enemy. Kill them. Don't retreat. Xiaoluo's voice was hoarse. He didn't remember how many times he had said this order. However, including him, the fighting spirit of all the warriors of Fueler was rapidly declining. As for the Krilla Corps, after losing the tribal leader Kazan, they could only retreat continuously. There were less than 200 people left, and they had always chosen to watch the development of the situation from a distance. They could not retreat to the city at this time. They had to stay outside the city and wait until the Limok Corps was completely destroyed. In that case, they could share this victory with the Fueler Corps as the wise man Very said before, and have the right to speak in the subsequent disposal of the Limok tribe. After seeing the embarrassing situation of the Fueler Corps being forced to retreat by dozens of Limok warriors, they also saw the opportunity to fight for more right to speak. Kill all the Limok people. Someone shouted, and the noisy running sound of nearly 200 Krilla people became the main theme of this absurd battle. They raised their weapons high, with extremely twisted smiles on their faces, and chopped down and cut all the Limok warriors who had no power to resist into pieces. We killed the Limok. In front of the Fueler Corps, whose expressions were almost frozen and who had just recovered, the Krilla people jumped up and down frantically. They stepped on the blood that had become a stream, and their faces were full of ecstasy. The battle was finally won. Although the leader was no longer alive, the hateful Limok people had been completely wiped out. And it was the Krilla people who dealt the final blow. We killed the Limok. Hey? the Krilla Corps suddenly found that the Freela Corps had reorganized its formation and pointed its weapons at them. Krilla bastards. You will also go to the road of death with the Limit people. Kill them. Although he was a little exhausted and his soldiers had just recovered from the chaos, the leader of Freela, Xiaoluo, knew that he could not continue to stalemate this war that should have been easy. Now they have less than 600 soldiers, and they must fight quickly. What? The Krilla Corps did not expect that things would turn out like this. The Wise Valley. Did the Wise Valley plan this from the beginning? Did he let the Fueler Legion attack us after killing the Limit Legion from the beginning? Exclamation mark. However, they no longer have any time to resent the unknown lizardmen of Calipola. With only 200 people, they can only fight with their heads held high, because they have been surrounded by this group of hateful traitors. The bloodstains on the ground that have not yet coagulated have added new traces with the charge of Fueler and the resistance of Krilla. Amid constant roars and screams, two legions approached here from different directions. They did not know each other's existence, but held the same delusion. The once powerful Fueler Legion now has only more than 500 people left. After they completely kill the Krilla tribe, they will win this battle. The Wise Valley has already planned everything. And the purpose of the weak Calipola where he is just to avoid being threatened by the Limit tribe or the Fueler tribe. The entire 800 plus troops of the tribe led by the leader Takiri of Ribok and the Komodo tribe led by the leader Shira also had more than 800 people. They were waiting for the opportunity, waiting for the moment when the Fueler Legion killed the Krilla Legion to relax. As long as Fueler is killed, whether it is the Fueler tribe, Krilla, Limok, or even Calipola, they will all be in their hands. Wise man very, I'm afraid he will never believe in his own strategy, but will give birth to a more terrible ruler in this area. Exclamation mark. The simple circuits in Takiri and Shira's brains think so. After killing Fueler, there will be 5 tribes. Under the leadership of Shiro, the Fueler Legion quickly ended the battle. Although nearly 60 people died again, they still slaughtered nearly 200 Krilla people. We are the rulers of this forest. Shiro's hoarse throat roared out this declaration that he thought was the winner. However, at the same time, the Ribok Legion and the Komodo Legion instantly appeared in 2 directions of the battlefield. This is. Suddenly, Shiro felt a blank in front of his eyes. This is the Ribok and Komodo Corps. Shouldn't they accept the gift from the Wise Valley and avoid the battle in their respective tribes? But why are they here again? Could it be that? Was this the original purpose of the Wise Valley? Leader Shiro suddenly figured out everything. His original purpose was to let the other 5 tribes, except Calipola, fight here. Damn the Wise Valley. Everyone cheer up. Ribok and Komodo are our new enemies. Kill. Although they were exhausted and could hardly hold the bronze spear, the warriors of Fueler still cheered up. They were hunters at the beginning, and after killing their prey Limok and Krilla, they became the prey of Ribok and Komodo. But even as prey, there is a chance to overthrow the hunter. Taziri's troops, Sarah's legion, Ribok and Komodo also saw each other at the same time. But now, they have no way out. If we lose this golden opportunity to destroy Farah, we don't know how long we have to wait for the next one. Whoever retreats from here will also lose the initiative to fight for victory. The warriors of Ribok will never be afraid of any pathetic enemy. We, Komodo, are the winners of this battle. Kill Ribok and Komodo. A new round of battle between the 3 legions is about to begin. Chapter 118, The End of the War. 5th update. Please subscribe. The hands holding the bronze spears had long lost their strength, and even if they wanted to take a step, it had already become extremely difficult. The Fueler Legion, bathed in the bodies of the fallen enemies, picked up Limok's shield and erected it on the ground. Their army of less than 600 people huddled behind the barrier of shields, fighting for even a moment. For Fueler. Shiro was at the center of the legion, holding up a pair of spears that he had picked up from nowhere. His giant spear had long disappeared from the battlefield filled with corpses and rivers of blood. Shiro's voice had long been hoarse, and he couldn't remember how many times he had encouraged his subordinates around him like this. But he also knew that his side did not have much combat power. He mobilized the small legion that had been intended as a sneak attack force and finally killed Limok, but found that his side had also suffered considerable damage. but they had to continue to eliminate the remaining Krella Legion. Finally, after counting their own remaining soldiers, there were only more than 400 soldiers. What they are about to face is the 800-man legions of Rebecca and Komodo who have invaded the battlefield. An emotion called despair gradually spread into the hearts of these Freela warriors. For Freela. Although Shero was still shouting with a hoarse roar, even if he was in high spirits, they had already overdrawn their physical limits in the previous battle. Rebecca and Komodo's legions did not hesitate at all. They all knew that, if one side fell behind the other, the final outcome of the battle might be rewritten. Send all the idiots of Freela and Komodo to their deaths. Rebecca's leader Tazali raised the round copper shield. We will be the winners who rule over everyone. Komodo's leader Shella almost simultaneously issued the slogan of attack. The battlefield, which had gradually recovered from the chaos, fell into chaos again. Rebecca and Komodo instantly rushed into Freela's shield wall. The loud shouts and the screams of pain gradually composed a melody of blood. Dusk. Under the blood-red sky, the noise gradually turned into dead silence. The battlefield was filled with a solemn atmosphere. Fighting, screaming, and howling. The wind blew, and the wailing and screaming that had just disappeared bloomed again. The living blood-soaked warriors were still fighting desperately for the final victory. Broken arms and limbs kept falling down at the feet, which were hideous and terrifying. The smell of blood made people suffocate. We killed Shallow of Fueler. Tazli raised his spear, and it was the head of the dead giant lizard man. He stood proudly on Shallow's body, as if telling everyone that the Ribbit tribe was the real winner. And we killed you. Tazari, go to the road of death. Having lost almost all his warriors, Shara, the leader of Komodo, crawled out of the mountain of corpses and used all his strength to throw out 2 long spears. At this time, he was exhausted and died. Tazari didn't even let the smile of the winner last for a moment, and his head was pierced by 2 bronze spears. Kill. The warriors of the Rebecca and Komodo Legion, who had lost their leaders at the same time, issued the last battle cry. The Rebecca tribe, with only more than 100 people left, finally killed the last living non-tribe person before the sky turned into night. After losing almost everything, they were in pain, confusion, joy, and excitement. Even though the leader Tazari had died in the battle, the Rebecca was the tribe that laughed last. We won. However, before they had time to enjoy the joy of victory, they saw the huge army suddenly approaching from a distance, and the words of celebration that had not been uttered could no longer be uttered. Otherwise, some of them recognized the Calypula people with 2 special white scales next to their eyes. Instantly, they understood everything. It's Calypula's army. Everyone, run. The high morale collapsed instantly after the sudden appearance of more than 400 fully armed Calypula troops with weapons never seen before. However, Wooly the Wise did not want to give these more than 100 Ribbits any chance to survive. Calypula, where the god of prophecy was born, is the only master who should rule everything in this forest. We are the masters. Kill. Starry night. After a brief noise, the battlefield returned to calm again. The Calypula troops, wearing animal skin armor, holding bronze spears and round blades, although there were only 400 people, became the most powerful force on this battlefield full of corpses. They wiped out the remaining Ribbits without any effort. Okay, are there any injured? Wise Wary asked all the warriors, including the Legion commander, who could hardly control their desire to celebrate. No, we don't. The roar shook the sky. As the last Reaper, Wise Wary led the Calypula Legion all the way from the tribe to the last Ribbit head, and no one was even slightly injured. Okay, if you want to celebrate, let's start after we occupy the 4 tribes after the light comes again. Calypula. Guo Sen suddenly felt that as a bystander, after watching such a short war completely controlled by Wise Wary, all he could do was admire and praise him from the bottom of his heart. Wise Wary did everything to become Wise Wary. He didn't expect that Wise Wary actually made such a bold plan just as he thought. Guo Sen was sure that Wise Wary made the overall plan in this way. First, as a weak person, after representing Calypula's surrender to Limok, he told them that they could unite with Fueler to attack the thorn in their eyes, the Krilla tribe. Then, he went to persuade the Krilla and Fueler tribes without stopping, and formulated a strategy to jointly attack the Limok core. He also fully anticipated that Fueler, which had the largest number of people, would eventually want to swallow up the other two tribes, and told them that Ribok and Komodo had been persuaded, which also stimulated the leader of Fueler, Shallow, and induced him to do so. When the wise man Valley arrived at Ribok and Komodo, he told them separately that they could steal the fruits of victory in the end. When all the tribes did not take Caligula seriously and thought that they were weak and just wanted to survive in this chaotic world, they did not expect that they were the final harvesters. When Limok and the Fueler Corps with ulterior motives joined forces and went to Krira, and when Ribok and Komodo also sent troops, the tragedy of these tribes played between the palms of the Wise Man Valley was laid. The Wise Man Valley is really a very powerful person. Chapter 119 The Ideal Candidate. Long before Caligula's army harvested the final victory, the sneak attack team composed of the chief and young soldiers they sent from the Limok tribe easily ruled the almost unarmed place. The tribal chief Chick thought they were going to support again at first, and opened the door generously. As a result, before the smile on his face disappeared, he became another unlucky guy in this war. After the Rangers occupied the Limok tribe, they quickly controlled everything there. After leaving some tribesmen there, they continued to the next destination, Krilla. This was also the plan of the wise man Wali before, to occupy Limok, Krilla, Fueler, Ribok and Komodo one by one. The premise is that the direction of this war will develop as the wise man Wali planned. The tribe started a millennia Krilla, and the last remnants were harvested by Caligula's army. However, when night fell, they rushed to the battlefield filled with the pungent smell of blood. After looking at the heroic back of the warrior of the same tribe who had just killed the last Ribok warrior, they finally understood that the wisdom of the wise Wali had won the victory in this war full of tricks. Enter the Krilla tribe tonight, and then occupy Fueler, Ribok and Komodo after dawn. The wise Wali waved his hand, and 400 warriors entered the completely undefended Krilla tribe along with the 200 people of the newly arrived leader campus. In this primitive society, the concept of the winner is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. 100 years ago, the huge tribe split into 16 because the previous chief was too cruel and inhumane and forced the tribes to hand over food regardless of their actual conditions. So the tribes rebelled and established a new leader. And the chief, Caligula, also killed him and established a new leader. However, Caligula became the weakest of the 16 tribes because he diverted almost all his troops. After more than 100 years of development, the tribes attacked each other, but no tribe could really grow stronger. The Kiripala led by the wise Wali now played the other 5 tribes in the palm of his hand. After finally winning the war, the tribe kept the gates of the tribe closed. The Krilla tribe, which saw the complete destruction of its own tribal army, also knew that they had ushered in a new ruler. This night was calm, except for some people who maintained order, including the wise Wali. Everyone fell into a deep sleep. They also had to take the remaining 3 tribes into their pockets before dawn. In the early morning, before the ruled people of the Krilla tribe woke up from their sleep, the wise Wali and the leader of Kiripala, Campus, led the army and left the tribe early before the stars rose. Their goal was the closest Fueler tribe. This is also one of the tribes with the largest population among all the tribes. There were as many as 1,500 warriors who could be pulled out, but these have become the bones of the Krilla war. The wise man Wali knew that, as long as he controlled this huge tribe, he could lay the key to the revival of Caligula. However, he did not notice that the eyes of the chief Campus beside him had changed when he looked at him. Compared with this dazzling existence, Campus, the chief of the Limok tribe, who could only rely on numbers to conquer the Limok tribe, had an unspeakable depression and anger in his heart, which kept growing. Look at those warriors, they have become close brothers with the wise Wali, and have dedicated all their trust and smiles to him. Look at the Legion Commander Walker, he can no longer see his existence, and keeps discussing the war that happened yesterday with the wise Wali. Look at the young subordinates brought out by himself, they no longer have themselves in their eyes, and their eyes staring at the wise Wali are full of admiration. The eyes of the chief Campus gradually twisted, tangled, and crazy. Kill him. Kill him, kill him. With such a person, what prestige does a chief have? Will his future life be like the chief Chike of the Limok tribe, becoming a puppet under the hands of the leader Tansander? This cannot be allowed. It must not be allowed. We must find an opportunity to disguise it as an accident and get rid of Wally the Wise. Campus heart has been occupied by darkness. Guo Sen has been paying attention to Wally the Wise. Of course, he is also paying attention to the leader beside him whose expression has become ferocious. This is expected. It's just that Wally, a member of the Wise, played a huge role in this war, which has made this leader, who has not done anything big, extremely jealous, and even hateful, and gradually crazy. The Dragon Slayer will eventually become the evil dragon. With wisdom alone, all the troops of the 5 tribes were completely wiped out in one day. Wally the Wise, his achievements are greater than his master, and this will make him a sacrifice that will be buried in the so-called power struggle. Wally the Wise and the leader, who will bear the huge fate in the future of this tribe? The answer is obvious. In Guo Sen's view, the life of Wally the Wise is more important than everyone around him. A unified civilization will also produce the most basic national consciousness. This kind of consciousness will also allow more new and advanced things to be born and developed. The birth of writing, the establishment of era consciousness, unified weights and measures. All of these will be realized slowly. What Guo Sen wants is an intelligent race with a high-level civilization. And he doesn't want to wait too long. If necessary, he would like to achieve this goal as quickly as possible within his ability. Of course, he won't break too many rules. For example, the warriors who control the remaining dozen tribes line up to die here in the Colossal Legion. That makes no sense. Or wipe out all the remaining tribes in an instant. Even more meaningless. Only by leading the warriors and using their unparalleled wisdom to conquer all the tribes one by one will they understand the importance of unification. If you want to achieve this goal, the most ideal candidate, or the person who can achieve this initial goal the fastest, is this wise man Wally. Whether his life exists or not is an important key to the speed of the development of this lizardman civilization. If the wise Wally dies, Guo Sen is not sure how long it will take for these lizardman tribes to produce a talent who is as wise as him. His wisdom was completely ahead of everyone else in this era. And this leader was an important figure who influenced the wise man Wally and even the entire civilization process. Simply kill him? No, let's create an accident. Anyway, the remaining people in the Fueler tribe didn't want to surrender completely. Chapter 120 Conspiracy. The Fueler tribe has received the bad news. A guard who went to the battlefield secretly and almost died there told everyone the bad news. The wise man Wally used his wisdom to trick their tribe and the remaining 4 tribes. There are only 30 guards left in the tribe. Even if they have a solid wall, more than 600 civilians, and even the armory is full of weapons, they will never be the opponent of the Colossal Legion. The difference is that there are 2 ways to resist or surrender directly. The guards are different from those civilians. They don't want to simply hand over the ownership of this tribe to the Legion, led by the wise Wally. No matter what, let them understand the backbone of our Fueler tribe. The guard leader, Coca, shouted to his companions. Yes. 30 guards moved a large number of weapons in the armory to the wall made of thick wooden stakes. Even if they die, they must use these weapons to send at least one Colossal bastard to death. The best is the conspirator who planned everything, the wise Wally. Guo Sen looked at the movements of the Fueler tribe and understood what they wanted to do. These lizardmen who were unwilling to fail seemed to want to make a final resistance. And what they wanted to do seemed to be the same as what the leader of Colossal wanted. Get rid of the wise Wally and avenge the hatred in their hearts. Although the starting point is different, the purpose is the same. Guo Sen believes that the wise Wally must have expected that the Fueler tribe would be in such a situation a long time ago and chose to go there as soon as possible in the early morning to prepare to conquer this tribe. The wise Wally must have been prepared for what would happen in Fueler, but he probably didn't expect that there would be problems inside. People who are too smart will have this problem. After being more successful than the master, they are completely unaware. Guo Sen watched this group of Colossal's lizardman troops gradually approaching the Fueler tribe. They were in high spirits and had serious expressions. They had no idea of underestimating the enemy, except for one person. Chief Campus became more and more anxious. He knew that if he successfully conquered the Fueler tribe, then he would have no chance to get rid of the wise Wally in a short time. When he went to the 2 tribes of Rebecca and Komodo, which had deployed all their troops and had no defense at all, Campus was not stupid. Even if he ordered the Legion Commander Walker to execute the wise Wally immediately, or simply did it himself, someone would definitely stop him. Even if he really succeeded, Campus knew that his fate would be to accompany the wise Wally to his death. What should he do? Find a coincidence and disguise it as an accident? What should he do? Just as the leader was frantically thinking about how to create an accident, their troops had passed through the jungle and came to the open space in front of the Fueled tribe. In an instant, Campus saw the fully armed guards on the wall of the Fueled tribe. These damn guys from the Fueled tribe, even now they are still resisting? Why is everyone against me? Damn. In the end, Wally the Wise, it seems that as you expected, these remnants of the Fueled tribe don't seem to want to surrender obediently. Legion Commander Walker ordered the entire army to stop moving forward. If they were closer, they would be within the attack range of the Fueled warriors. That's for sure. Compared with other tribes, their leader Xiaoluo has always been very cautious. Otherwise he wouldn't have let yesterday's battle become the final result. Wise Valley squinted his eyes and looked carefully at the guards holding spears on the wall. 15. Less than expected. Indeed, I can't imagine that Xiaoluo only left so few people in the tribe. Legion Commander Walker also became suspicious. If there are 15 people, then it's easy to deal with. Wise Valley touched the white scale next to his eyes, thinking. Leader Campus' heart was beating wildly. Isn't this an opportunity? It is absolutely impossible for him to think of any tricks in his little head, but at this time, he thought of a good way to get rid of Wise Valley. With the power of these guards of the Fueled tribe. Chief, what do you think? At this moment, the wise man Wally suddenly said this to him. Haha, I think, well, how about we persuade them to surrender? Persuade them to surrender? Legion Commander Walker was a little puzzled. This method. The wise man Wally was also a little confused. Think about it, we killed all their warriors, even the idiot Xiaoluo was killed. Moreover, they only have 15 people, and our more than 600 warriors can scare them to death, right? So, I think. Campus explained his thoughts diligently. There is some truth, but how to do it? The wise man Wally thought for a moment and nodded. The two of us will go forward and shout together, only with shields. If they can throw spears, we don't have to be afraid. Campus felt that his heart was about to beat out when he said this. This tension was even more serious than when he took power from the dying old chief while other warriors were out hunting. It's not a big problem. The wise man Wally grinned. But, isn't this a bit dangerous? Legion Commander Walker always felt that something was wrong. How could it be? What kind of danger can 15 of them cause? Campus glared at Walker, but Walker didn't look away. This bastard Walker, after we kill Wary the Wise, you'll be next. Campus gritted his teeth and tried to force a smile. Okay, Wary the Wise, let's go and persuade them to surrender. Time is tight. We still have to go to Ribok and Komodo. If the Relida and Kafengla tribes over there have any ideas, we will have time to deal with them. That's right, time is tight. Instead of fighting these 15 people, it's better to let them surrender directly. Besides, I'm really worried about Relida and Kafengla. Wise Wally was convinced. He took a shield and followed the leader Campus to gradually approach the Fueled tribe under the worried eyes of Legion Commander Walker. The Fueled tribe, which had already made all the arrangements, suddenly found that only 2 people appeared in Karibala's legion and were still approaching. Guard Captain Coca spotted the short guy with white scales around his eyes. He was the most important target they wanted to avenge Wally the Wise. But who was that guy next to him? Could he be the leader or the Legion commander who appeared with Wally the Wise? Coca hesitated. They were already in range. Should they attack, or wait for the large force behind them to arrive, and then let the brothers in ambush attack? Or, Chapter 121, to the best of our ability. Leader Campus knew very well that they had entered the maximum attack range of the projectiles of the guards of Ferrilla. However, the attack he expected did not come. The shield in his hand was not as thin as those in the hands of others. As the leader, Campus's shield was even specially made. It was taller, wider, and thicker than ordinary ones. Although he felt it was heavy when he carried it, it was indeed a good thing to save his life. When he was attacked by the Limok tribe before, he was forced to go up to the wooden wall to supervise the battle. He was saved several times by this shield, and the deep scratches on it were proof of it. In addition, he was wearing a special animal skin armor that almost covered his whole body, except for the head. Even a giant like Xiaoluo could not easily hurt him with a spear. To avoid multiple projectile attacks, he only needed to shrink behind the huge shield standing on the ground. This was for him. Ordinary warriors, even the one in the hands of the wise man Wally, would be reduced to half a cripple after 3 or 4 projectiles. Moreover, after Fueler's projection, he would use his powerful strength to pretend to accidentally push the wise man Wally out of the defense range of the shield, and then look at him. Leader Campus suddenly felt that the god of prophecy was on his side. This was almost the perfect stage to get rid of the wise man Wally. We are Leader Campus and the wise Wally from Calibo. Your leader Xiaoluo has died in battle, and the rest of the warriors have all gone to their deaths, so. However, before Campus finished shouting at the guards, more than a dozen spears shining with cold light flew towards the two of them. Not only was there the wise Wally, but even Leader Campus was there. Guard Captain Coca immediately judged what they were going to do. If there was a chance to kill 2 people in high positions in Calibo, how could they miss it? Campus, who hid his body behind the shield in an instant, knew that the opportunity had come. Wally the Wise. Be careful. Campus wanted to rush to Wally's side and block him with his shield, but his arms gathered strength and rushed towards Wally recklessly. However, Wally the Wise almost rolled backwards at this moment, and the leader missed and lost his balance. Bang bang bang. The muffled sound came from the constantly vibrating shield, almost covering the whole body of the shield. Wally the Wise, who was lying on the ground, was unharmed. The leader, who lost his balance and fell to the ground, was lucky enough not to be stabbed. Chief, what are you doing? Wally said, shrinking behind the shield again, and the second wave of flying guns came. Be careful. If it weren't for me just now, you almost. Campus immediately pulled away, and he also hid behind the shield at the same time. Wally the Wise was thoughtful. However, before the Legion Commander Walker led the army to rescue the 2 men, 15 Fueler warriors who had been ambushing for a long time suddenly appeared from the bushes very close to Campus and Valley. Wally the Wise. They shouted the name of their greatest enemy and rushed straight to the 2 men. Even if the Legion Commander Walker wanted to rush over to protect the 2 men, he couldn't do it. After all, the distance between them and the leader in the Wise Valley was too far compared to those sneak attackers. The sneak attackers did not stab out the long spears flashing with cold light in their hands, but directly projected them at a very close distance. Campus had never thought that he would encounter such a close range attack. He hurriedly raised his shield, but before he had time to squat down to avoid it, he was instantly stabbed into a hedgehog. The Wise Valley collapsed to the ground. He thought he could not avoid this attack, but found that those long spears were nailed to the ground beside him by a hair's breadth, and he didn't even cut himself, and suffered a little injury. What on earth is going on? The attackers, who were also frightened by this strange thing, could hardly believe their eyes. With their shooting skills, how could they not hurt the wise man Wally at such a close distance? However, they soon ran out of time to think carefully. The stunned attackers felt a sharp pain in their necks almost instantly and fell down again. Drawing the sword, slashing horizontally, and putting away the sword. With his extremely fast speed, Wally, the wise man, held the round blade in both hands and chopped the heads of the 15 people into the air before the attackers could react. As their bodies fell to the ground, he returned to the Legion in an instant. Revenge for the leader. Charge. Legion leader Walker suddenly roared at this time, and more than 600 warriors rushed towards the tribe of Fueler like a black tide. The battle was over in a very short time. The stunned guards of Freela were soon pierced by the spears thrown by the Legion, and became dead bodies, while the residents of Freela knelt on the ground collectively, begging for forgiveness from the conquerors of Calipola. In this battle, the Calipola Legion only lost their unimportant leader. After sending dozens of people to station in Freela, the wise Wary led the Legion, and quickly swept through Riverk and Komodo, who had almost no resistance. Whether it was the ambitious Limerk, Freela with the largest number of troops, or Krilla, who occupied the most advantageous terrain, or Riverk and Komodo, who were close to other tribes. Under his strategy, the 5 originally powerful tribes had easily become the territory of Calipola. The price they paid was only the leader. After occupying Komodo, the wise wary became the new leader under the gaze of many Kalipala people, and also became the chieftain who controlled 6 tribes. I, the wise wary, swear to follow the revelation of the god of profit, and one day turn this forest back into our territory. Karapala, Kalipala. Whether it is Limuk, Krilla, Fula, or even those tribes we have not ruled yet, they will all have a common name. That is Kalipala. Karapala, Kalipala. The wise wary made a bold statement at the inauguration ceremony of the chieftain, and Guo Sen fully believed that this would become a reality in a very short time. This person has this ability. The ability to play with more than one enemy in the palm of his hand with the wisdom that surpasses everyone else. The remaining 10 tribes, when facing the Kalipala tribe that suddenly became the most powerful from the weakest, would definitely become part of Kalipala in the repeated schemes of the wise wary. However, if he had not changed the flight trajectory of the spears flying towards the wise wary before, then these would only become hypotheses. Guo Sen knew that sometimes, what he could do, might bring about the smallest change, but it could also be the most fatal change. For example, saving the wise man Wally could be said to be the smallest thing, but it could also be said to be the biggest thing. Chapter 122 They became more crooked. 4th update, please subscribe. The stars fell, and the shining white dumplings in the sky hung high in the air. The land of the fire lizards entered the night again. Countless flames rose from various tribes at the same time. These lights emanating from the darkness will one day illuminate every dark area of the entire continent. Guo Sen raised his eyes and looked at the flames. He had noticed before that before the war was over, some lizards escaped from these tribes and marched to the distant mountains, rivers, and valleys. They were tired of fighting each other and yearned for the unknown. Guo Sen knew that, if these people could safely reach some places suitable for survival, they would eventually allow the lizards to spread all over the continent and become the masters here completely. However, this would take a long time. After all, it takes a very difficult process to create something from nothing. Guo Sen felt that after the wise man Wally unified all the tribes, he would definitely expand the territory and continuously expand the area of the territory he ruled. The influence he brings is estimated to be stronger than these refugees, right? However, this is all a story for the future. From the bold words that the wise man Wally made when he took office as the chief, it can be seen that this person already has a preliminary concept of the term country. After he unifies all the tribes, Guo Sen feels that he will definitely do quite a lot of interesting things. Creating characters, recording dates. Will the lizardmen gradually prosper? Their civilization will once again take a more solid step forward. Guo Sen raised his eyes and came to the mid-air. He was in a very happy mood. The wise man Wally, a lizardman with extraordinary intelligence, made him extremely satisfied. This planet is the first time that a person similar to the concept of hero has appeared. Although he did not win by force, the wisdom of the wise man Wally is enough to make the lizardman on the vast continent of the land of fire lizards prosper. As for how long he will be able to do this in the future, Guo Sen will wait and see. Guo Sen breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. His sight turned to the land of howling. This is the continent where the White Wolf tribe, who are committed to fighting, live. The last time, nearly 300 years ago, he had a quick glance. At that time, the White Wolf tribe was much larger than the pitiful dozens of people before. However, if Guo Sen had not helped them kill the Black Wolf tribe before, it would be those black-haired wolf-headed people with red pupils who would rule this howling land. If Guo Sen were asked to choose to help the White Wolf people or the Black Wolf people again, his answer would definitely be to watch from the sidelines. No matter what happens, there is a process of growth. When Guo Sen faced the intelligent life on the sphere, his practices gradually matured. At the beginning, he almost taught the lizardmen to do various things by hand, possessed a White Wolf tribe warrior's body to defeat the Black Wolf tribe, taught the dwarves to make means of transportation. Guo Sen's practices have been constantly changing. His participation has also changed from doing everything himself at the beginning to just performing simple operations later. When he finally met the primitive people who like to eat insect honey, he just transplanted the root plants that could make wine to the island. It's not that he became lazy, but that he understood how to guide the intelligent creatures on the sphere. It doesn't mean that they will develop quickly and well if they are highly invested. Instead, this extraordinary power should be used where it should be used most. Just like just now, he protected the wise man Wally and changed this scene of history. Perhaps, if he didn't help the White Wolf tribe 300 years ago and just watched, the Black Wolf tribe would quickly occupy the entire forest with a huge number. Even without wisdom, they might have created an alternative civilization. However, this is just a hypothesis. Guo Sen killed nearly 100 black werewolves with his own hands at that time. There is no way back, so just take it as it comes. Although the White Wolf tribe would shout "let's go" show off during the battle, their civilization, which has been led astray by themselves, should be relatively normal, right? With such a guess, Guo Sen searched for their traces on this land, covered with large tracts of forests and grasslands. Soon, Guo Sen saw a large group of white figures appearing on the vast grassland full of various animals. "We are going to show off, Chief." The roar shook the earth. All the animals were frightened by the roar, and some even ran away directly. "You are right, it is this group of idiots. Who else can say this?" Guo Sen deeply felt that he really led this group of white wolves, who were already somewhat passionate, astray. Each of them carried a double gun that was almost as tall as their height, and rushed into the grassland, where wild beasts were rampant at a speed as fast as the wind, heading straight for the most ferocious and largest prey. "I'm going to show off. I'm going to show off. Damn it." Guo Sen was speechless. "Do you know anything else?" The white wolves with shining golden eyes wielded their silver snake-like weapons. They were fearless even when facing a violent beast with sharp fangs and a body as big as a hill. Especially a white wolf with a few red hairs on his head was so excited. Guo Sen even felt sorry for it when he saw dozens of white wolves frantically stabbing, and chopping the beast with those sharp weapons in various ways. It was a torment to be beaten up, but it was really a torment to have to listen to the white wolves constantly competing. Poor beast. It was 2 circles larger than the elephants on Earth, and it was covered with brown hair. In fact, it looked more like a wild boar, but it didn't seem to charge around. It just liked to scare people with its fangs. It was so huge, and suffered such a torture. It might as well be called the giant paw beast. Guo Sen saw the poor giant beast moving its heavy steps, and trying to run away, but it fell into a big pit dug by the White Wolf clan at some point, and this time it couldn't run away at all. The White Wolf clan was very excited. They had already made "We Are Going to Show Off, Chief" into a war song with an extremely unpleasant tune, accompanied by the iconic wolf howl. "Chief, we are going to show off, you say?" Guo Sen said that he had never seen such a mentally retarded race. Although they are indeed very strong in combat. Not long after, the White Wolf clan, who sang the unpleasant war song, used the sharp weapons in their hands to turn the huge animal into a cold corpse. Bleeding, disembowelment, belly cutting, and cutting meat. The White Wolf clan seemed to be very skilled in handling prey. Guo Sen could also carefully observe the weapons used by the White Wolf clan at this time. It was not the copper spearheads before, nor the iron used by the dwarves, nor the bronze alloy with a dark golden light. The metal object shining with black light seemed to be meteorite iron. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123. What are you doing? 5th update. Please subscribe. Guo Sen is very familiar with ores. Meteoric iron, an ore with extremely small reserves on Earth, now appears on his sphere, which is not surprising. After all, he had experienced countless meteorite bombardments in ancient times. The existence of meteoric iron is not rare, just like the gold of the armored orcs, which is quite abundant. What is strange is that the White Wolf tribe did not use the pile of malachite that he had piled up not far from the tribe at that time, but skipped it directly and mastered the process of smelting meteoric iron. This is really, I don't understand. What's going on? A big leap in smelting technology. Meteoric iron is an ore that is gradually formed after the fall of meteorites with extremely high iron content in the long changes of the times. Compared with the unevenly distributed iron ore in the Earth's crust, this is indeed a simple thing to smelt. However, this is a process that should appear after the copper smelting process is relatively mature. Guo Sen thought, did the White Wolf tribe accidentally discover this area with a high content of meteoric iron when smelting copper? Or did they not smelt copper at all? With doubts, he simply checked the ore content and distribution of the nearby strata, and found a meteorite iron ore layer occupying a large area nearby. This ore layer is roughly located in a huge meteorite crater whose outline can hardly be seen. And on a piece of black gravel in this pit, hundreds of white creatures are working non-stop. They are holding metal tools and knocking on the surface of the rock, making ping pong sounds from time to time. There is no doubt that it is the White Wolf tribe. Guo Sen did not watch the hunting White Wolf tribe splitting the meat, but moved his focus to the group of miners here. They are obviously more interesting than the group of fighting maniacs. After all, last time, Guo Sen only saw the various battle-related things shown by the White Wolf tribe, and almost nothing else. Now that they can go mining, it means that civilization has taken a big step forward. Guo Sen zoomed in. He wanted to take a good look at how these guys who didn't even know what minerals were, mined. However, the scene in front of him made him not know how to complain in his heart. The White Wolf people simply collected the broken pieces of open pit ore and smashed them one by one with homemade hammers. After putting the ore into bags made of animal skins, some strong tribesmen carried them on their backs and transported them to a small river not too far away. At the slow-flowing river, which was only about 1 meter deep, Guo Sen saw a raft made of several wooden stakes, with an animal skin swaying in the wind on it. The thin large animal skin was hung between two upright thin wooden stakes and stretched tight. As the wind blew, it couldn't help but swell. This seemed to be an extremely simple and primitive sail. The miners of the White Wolf tribe put the leather bags on the raft and pushed it into the water. Some returned to the mine, while the others followed the raft downstream along the riverbank. How should this be evaluated? There is almost no mining technology. If picking up gravel from the ground is considered mining, then it is indeed a bit. The method of transportation? Purely manual. Looking at the expressions of the White Wolf tribe who were carrying the ore, they were grinning and looked really tired. However, they were able to make rafts and even develop something like sails, which showed a certain wisdom. This primitive and advanced civilization made Guo Sen really confused. The White Wolf tribe was indeed a civilization that allowed him to see unexpected things at all times. This can be seen from the fact that their advanced tribe was almost wiped out by the Black Wolf tribe. However, since the ore was carried downstream, it is estimated that their smelter is also in the downstream area of the river. Guo Sen's side gradually moved forward along the stream. Grey clay was smeared between the ochre-red square bricks. They accumulated layer by layer to outline a tall wall that was almost circular. And from the wall, there was a constant sound of ding-dong. Guo Sen resisted the urge to complain and continued to look inside. The blast furnace was extremely simple. Yes, it was similar to the one he had seen in the dwarf tribe 300 years ago. It was made of clay and was a disposable blast furnace that could be pushed away after use. The wolf stuffed a lot of charcoal into it and kept throwing firewood into it and blew air into it with a tube that seemed to be made of animal skin. Look at the anvil for making weapons and tools. It was a solid, almost rectangular meteorite anvil, which was polished to be extremely flat. The wolves were pouring the meteorite that had melted into liquid blocks and slightly solidified on it, swinging the hammer and hitting it repeatedly. Guo Sen suddenly felt a little puzzled. The civilization of the White Wolf tribe felt like a mixture of two extremes. They could make bricks and walls from clay and had a simple city wall consciousness, but they could not make more advanced blast furnaces and could not even make a decent blast device, but they could make a flat meteorite anvil. What the hell was this? What happened to the White Wolf tribe that made the development of civilization so messed up? Everything seemed to be full of contradictions. Various obsolete and advanced technologies appeared in this tribe at the same time, which made Guo Sen completely confused. In theory, the development of civilization should be more balanced, but it seems that this is not the case with the White Wolf clan. Some of their civilizations are extremely advanced, which makes GUOSEN's eyes light up. And some of them seem to have not changed in 300 years and are stagnant. GUOSEN couldn't figure it out. He thought that he should go to the White Wolf clan's tribe to take a look. Maybe he could find some answers. The tribe of humanoid creatures is not difficult to find. GUOSEN soon saw a tribe in a clearing that was obviously dug out by humans in the forest not far from the smelter. He recalled carefully that this location seemed to be their original place of origin. That is, the tribe that was once occupied by the Black Wolf clan and then recaptured. However, the scale here seems to be much larger than what GUOSEN had seen before. Originally, the small place that only covered an area of several thousand square meters has now expanded at least 100 times. A several meter wide wall made of solid wood piles and bricks surrounded this huge tribe. After processing large and small trees into suitable planks and pillars for construction, the White Wolves used them to build houses into connected wooden houses. Nearly 10,000 White Wolves were constantly moving and busy in this tribe. Chapter 124. Why do you have so many question marks? GUOSEN once doubted if there was something wrong with his visual system. He couldn't help but look at the starry outer space and even went back to check the situation of the previous lizard tribe to confirm it. But it's not broken. Everything is normal. Back to the White Wolf tribe. He saw a sea of people again. Damn. This is too much, buddy. Didn't you only have 40 people left before? Aren't there still a lot of old, weak and disabled people inside? What did you do every day to reproduce? Eat, sleep, sleep, sleep. GUOSEN didn't dare to imagine. From 40 to tens of thousands, in these 300 years, did these overbirth madmen do nothing but create humans? Well, their civilization has indeed developed a little bit. GUOSEN felt a little confused. What did these White Wolves experience during the days when he was not here to observe? In his heart, since he came to the Howling Land, he has never stopped doubting and being surprised. And these White Wolves seem to be born geniuses who can create these doubts and weirdness. Just like they learned his "I'm going to show off" phrase and used it as an important part of the battle for 300 years, this can be clearly seen. GUOSEN had never thought about the importance of the word reproduction to the intelligent creatures on his planet before. But now, after seeing the White Wolf clan, he knew that the reason why some races can survive is that their reproductive capacity has a considerable impact. 40 to tens of thousands. Back then, Chendaozi, no, to put it simply, he was awesome. But thinking about it this way, the lizardmen in the land of fire lizards seem to be a very fertile race. After all, 300 years ago, they were only about 100 people, and in the war just created by the wise Wally, they died in battle alone, and there were 3 to 4,000 of them. If you add the civilians who are not warriors, and the population of the remaining 10 tribes, the population seems to be quite large. They seem to be quite fertile. Among these intelligent creatures on the planet, it seems that one race also highlights this advantage in this regard: giant insects. GUOSEN had indeed seen the reproductive capacity of the giant insects. Although the survival rate was a bit low, the eggs they produced were indeed numerous, so many that, even if so many were eaten by the armored orcs, and so many were trampled to death by him, there were still some that survived. As for the dwarves, primitive people, sheep people, bird people, giants and armored orcs, GUOSEN suddenly showed great interest in the reproductive capacity of these races. He suddenly felt that, if they were stronger in this aspect, it would probably be a considerable advantage when they explored the entire continent in the future, or even when they developed a more advanced civilization in the future. At present, considering all the factors, the lizardmen and the White Wolf tribe are already in the leading position. They are all large overbirth forces. GUOSEN thought about this, and continued to look at the huge tribe of the White Wolf tribe. This tribe has extended the wall to the bank of the river that he had led here. They also opened a gate here, and a slightly flat path paved with gravel extended all the way to the riverside. This was also the river where the raft responsible for transporting meteorite iron, or drifted, that GUOSEN had just seen. The meteorite iron mines and smelters are all upstream of this river. This river seems to be their mother river. By the river, Guo Sen saw dozens of blast furnaces specially used for firing pottery. There were hundreds of White Wolf workers who were constantly repeating the process of kneading and firing. Large and small pottery such as plates and bowls were constantly produced and put into several warehouses built here and then transported back to the tribe by workers responsible for special transportation. The hill of malachite prepared for them before, as if it had not been used, was still standing not far away. It was not used, but meteorite iron was found directly. A mystery in his heart was solved. Guo Sen saw that several hunting teams came back from the forest and grassland along the gravel path, carrying a large amount of prey and gradually approaching the tribe. And the weapons in the hands of these people also made him marvel. Guo Sen still remembered the feeling of surprise when he first saw the bows and arrows made of vines and animal tendons by the White Wolf tribe. Seeing the wider bows in their hands shining with black light, he remembered that feeling again. Especially after seeing the 3 arrows on the sturdy bowstring. In addition to the longbow, they also made knives. It's not the kind of dagger that is worn on the waist, but a broad knife with a sharp single blade. Spear, bow, and arrow, broad knife. The White Wolf people seem to have considered quite a lot about weapons. However, if it comes to dealing with those wild beasts, Guo Sen thinks that a spear alone should be enough, right? After all, didn't the group of stupid white wolves seen on the grassland before use meteorite spears to hunt directly? There was one more question. After the mighty hunting team returned, Guo Sen saw that there were hundreds of people waiting near the gate. When the hunters walked into the gate, these people walked up and carried their prey away, took it to an open space, and began to process it further, cutting, deboning, and stripping tendons. The movements were extremely skillful. Then, some of the dried meat was sent to a place where hundreds of flames were burning. There, Guo Sen saw a group of white wolves who were responsible for grilling meat waiting. On the roofs of several connected houses near the open space, fresh or completely dried meat was drying, and inside these houses, there was also a considerable amount of dried meat in stock. It seemed to be a warehouse for storing food. It seemed that these white wolves also realized the importance of dried meat. In addition to being easy to carry, this thing is also very durable in storage. It can be regarded as a kind of food reserve and can be eaten at any time. Guo Sen recalled that the sheep tribe and the following tribes he saw before seemed to have discovered the significance of dried meat. However, can the White Wolf tribe use these thousands of pieces of dried meat to feed nearly 10,000 people? Guo Sen expressed doubts. This amount seems to be too little. Only after a significant increase in productivity will the population gradually stabilize and continue to increase. But if they rely solely on hunting, even if they kill 3 giant poor beasts a day, it is not enough for everyone to eat. The premise is to eat half full. There are more and more questions. Guo Sen couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. What is going on? The White Wolf tribe is almost full of mysteries. After looking at the tribe for a long time, the mysteries that Guo Sen wanted to solve have become more and more. However, Guo Sen still wants to explore this race carefully, and if necessary, see if he should intervene and guide their civilization tree that has already been a little crooked. Chapter 125. Please stop talking about dark history. When Guo Sen felt that he didn't need to continue observing, he suddenly saw a few wisps of smoke coming out from a hill in the distance. The smoke went straight up into the sky, as if someone was burning something. He shifted his sight from this huge tribe to the hill. Is that also the range of activities of the White Wolf people? However, when he came to the vast grassland at the foot of the mountain, Guo Sen suddenly felt a sense of deja vu. Grasslands, forests, low mountains, and a tribe with a huge cave, surrounded by a solid wooden stake wall. Isn't this the place where he put his consciousness into the corpse of the White Wolf warrior and pretended to be great? Isn't it the place where he showed his power? Guo Sen looked around. The wind blew across the grassland like waves, and on the towering wooden stake wall in the distance, stood fully armed White Wolf soldiers. In the past 300 years, it seems that this place has been frozen in time, with almost no changes, except for a huge statue, carved out of the mountain near the tribe. Guo Sen approached the statue. This is a flat figure that is nearly 10 meters high. Although the carving technique looks very rough, it can still be seen that this is the appearance of a white wolf warrior holding a spear in each hand. The wisps of smoke he just saw were floating up from the several fires under the feet of this huge statue. Nearly 100 white wolf people are standing next to these fires. Guo Sen noticed that these white wolf people wore crowns made of bird feathers. In the smoke, they kept their eyes closed and kept coughing and muttering something. If you think the smoke is choking, why don't you stand further away? The idea of these white wolf people is really. However, realizing this, they kept moving around the fire. But the wind blowing past seemed a little naughty. No matter where they moved, the wind would always follow them. This made the white long hair of the white wolf people dyed into a layer of ash. Okay. Guo Sen decided not to complain. However, these white wolf people did not seem to have a low status. Guo Sen thought of the group of hunters, smelters, and pottery makers on the grassland, and even the many white wolf tribes in the tribe, who were almost all wearing clothes made of brown fur. And the white wolf tribes in front of him, in addition to the standard war shoes sewn with animal skins, and some patterns were sewn on their clothes with something unknown. What was even more eye-catching was that the few standing closest to the stone statue were holding more than a dozen green rust-like things in their hands. The shape was exactly like a gun head. We are going to show off. We are going to show off. We are going to show off. Damn it. After Guo Sen heard the group of white wolf tribe suddenly shouting these embarrassing words, he felt that he couldn't stay here anymore. He couldn't stay at this altar dedicated to offering sacrifices to the warriors of the white wolf tribe who had created a mythical record in their history. Guo Sen felt a little ashamed, which was a feeling he had never had as a sphere. Thinking about what he had done at that time, it was really a dark history. Damn it. Please stop it, okay? Exclamation mark. Please stop saying we are going to show off. I really regret it. But, we are going to show off. They actually sang together. Guo Sen recalled that this was indeed the song that the white wolf people who hunted before had sung. This song has almost only one lyric. We are going to show off. This made Guo Sen even have the idea of wiping out the white wolf tribe that sang this song in one fell swoop. He was extremely embarrassed. After listening to the white wolf tribe members who seemed to be priests finish singing, he also stopped recalling the scene when he was a middle school student. Damn, I really want to erase the memory of these white wolf tribe members. Guo Sen roared in his heart. He suddenly felt that, before correcting the civilization tree of the white wolf tribe, he had to find a way to forget this sentence. As for the method, Guo Sen remembered the ability he had used on those primitive people. And he also thought of a paragraph to replace this sentence. Since you are so funny and passionate, let's do something more excessive. Guo Sen decided to wait and see these priests finish this weird and speechless sacrifice. A long time ago, our people were forced into a desperate situation by enemies wearing black fur. A white wolf with an old voice suddenly said, after everyone finished singing. Guo Sen knew that what he was going to talk about was his own dark history. Should I avoid it? It was really embarrassing. Those enemies almost killed all our people. In the end, only 40 people were left. This last tribe was surrounded by a large army of 2,000 people and was saved by our great god of war, Edmund. The old man pointed to the tribal wall next to him, his voice trembling. Guo Sen said, "You lied, old man. Where are the 2,000? It's obviously only 500. Why don't you just say 20,000 when the number has increased several times? You are bragging without thinking. You are just bragging. Besides, the White Wolf tribe didn't have a name at that time. What the hell is Edmund? God of War Edmund. God of War Edmund." The White Wolves shouted. Alright. Guo Sen was too tired to complain. You guys continue. The God of War brought the powerful weapons given to us by God, rushed into the enemy's formation alone, and killed all the enemies with his own strength. Edmund, the God of War. Edmund, the God of War. Damn you old thing. You clearly killed less than 100 at that time. How come you said you killed 2,000, and they were all killed by yourself? What do you think the remaining 40, including the extremely brave leader and warriors, think? If their bodies are still warm, they will definitely crawl out of the ground and chop you, believe it or not. Guo Sen thought, fuck it 1,000 times. Forget it, this group of white werewolves looks like huskies, so don't think so anymore. Edmund, the god of war, also died of exhaustion when the enemy was destroyed. And we, under the protection of the god of war, have regained our former glory. After listening for a long time, Guo Sen found that this old man seemed to be the leader of this tribe. He said a long list of nonsense again. Guo Sen was calm in the end. Where is your past glory? You are just bragging without thinking. At the end, the old leader took out the 2 copper spearheads that were polished to a shine without any trace of rust from his arms and respectfully placed them next to the barbecue and unknown fruits offered in front of the statue. May the god of war Edmund bless our tribe to prosper. Defeat all enemies. The loud roar sounded again. After the group sang a song "We Are Going to Show Off" by the fire, they finally ended the sacrificial activity that made Guo Sen feel speechless. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.